What's up, guys? Pre-show time. One drunk man in the chat, and oh my god, is he drunk?
Is he really drunk?
I don't know.
Like,
I don't actually know.
Is he
I
obliterated?
I'm completely kidding because I asked if he was drunk and he said not yet. But hopefully, during the span of this show, he will be incredibly inebriated.
Yeah, we'll need a
Nice.
follow-up at the end.
You know, I think we need more drunk people in Twitch chat when we stream.
are you trying to encourage people to drink, Brian?
Responsibly, legally and responsibly.
Oh, everyone's saving up the subs here. Look, guys, not Geo, AE, 38 months. Wow, 38 months. That's a huge amount of time. I don't even know how many Top Clack babies that is. DD Decline, 7 months as well. He's almost got a Top Clack baby. He says 2020, being drunk is always okay. Yeah, it's the year of home drinking, right? It's the year of
true. Yeah.
Switchkeys.au, the lovely Steph on a 13-month streak as well. Thank you very much. Lunar Sammer says hi Quakums on a 31-month streak as well.
Hello, Lunar.
Young Woody, 6 months. Wow, everyone coming out with the streaks today.
Is it just like this time of the month or something?
It must be like everyone's just streaking all the way across Top.
Usually we don't get subs like that consistently.
Jeshuff with the 500 responsible inebriation bits as well. Nice.
Is it time? Is it time for us to do a drunk episode again? It's been a while, right?
Oh, please do. Why couldn't that be this one? Come on.
Well, the issue is I have to prep for that because I don't stream from my house anymore. I stream from the warehouse, which is a short drive from my house. So I have to prep for that. If we're going to do it, I need to know in advance so I can make sure that the wife can pick me up.
I don't really drink very much anymore. I never have alcohol on hand, like ever. I'd have to like go buy something specifically for the occasion, which I could do. But maybe it's time to do that. Looking back on 2020.
Yeah, 2020, a retrospective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a year in review.
Yeah. Well, don't worry. You can join us, 0siris. We'll get.
All right,
does Chewy drink as well? We can bring Chewy up.
Oh, he does. He does. He will consume some Moscow mules and some stouts. That's
nice.
What a guy.
That's his jam.
Stout is, he's a man after my own heart. Do you know the last time when we got drunk, Brian? I think it was when we were on Man of Interest show and we were doing the.
That was so
much
much fun.
Oh yeah, I was.
We were all on that.
I was not sober for that show.
Yeah, I could tell.
That was a good time though. That was like actually really fun.
That was genuinely a lot of fun. Yeah, because I was drinking like Voolin, and I went through about half a bottle in the stream. So yeah, I don't even know how we're still sat here at the end.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was a good time. It was a good time. Just gonna rub it in again. Chewy and we did win. So
yeah, well, you can rub that in on Brian because he was the one that lost it for us. Yeah.
Hey, look, all right. I'm after a rematch. Okay. I will not deny that it was majorly my fault that we lost, but man, was I trying.
Yeah, trying my patience, man. Yeah.
Wow, I gotta try something.
I think every time you like dinged in, it was like I'm just gonna pour another drink here and just watch the shit show.
Oh no. Well, that's just kind of how it goes.
Wave Depth says, "Go on a beer run, Jay. We will wait." It's like 2 a.m. here, dude. I can't go on a beer run. Like, there's nowhere open. We're back in lockdown as well as of today as well. So in the UK now, we are back under pretty much full lockdown rules. So there is no way I can go to the supermarket and grab some beer, unfortunately.
Gio says, drop 0siris about 8%. I did. I dropped him exactly 8%. Hopefully that's better.
He sounds like God talking right now, but he is God.
That's why he's here.
I'm not. Okay.
He's got
It's too much, right?
He's got to bring some freaking godly powers to Jay and myself because we're lacking in the godly department.
Exactly. Yeah. Draxian says Amazon Prime some bear. I think he meant beer, but he said Amazon Prime some bear.
No, you gotta get a bear now. This is how a running joke starts.
let me see. What happens if I search for bear on Amazon?
Next week, there's just a cage with a bear cub in the background. Jay's stream.
Yeah, you guys asked for it.
Just like a literal bear cub just wandering around and standing up at the back of the chair. What do you guys think that on Amazon UK the first thing that comes up if I search for bear is?
I would assume like, okay, it's either like bear mace or like a teddy bear.
Well, it's clear that bear mace in the UK, that'd be interesting because there's no bears here. But the interesting thing is that Amazon must really know me, because the first thing that came up was coffee, and it says Brown Bear Blue Mountain Blend coffee. That's the first thing in the list. So Amazon showing that they really do know their clientele.
Wow.
And then the second thing is a soft toy. Yeah.
All right, let me see. It must be based on like maybe your own personal search algorithm or whatever.
It must be, I think. Yeah.
Let's see what I get. See, I get teddy bears, and
clearly you've never bought bear coffee.
I get vitamins by the brand Sugar Bear Hair.
Yeah, so I get two sponsored: a very large teddy bear, a mug with a bear face on it, and then vitamins.
No, I don't get the vitamins. The vitamins is cool. That's kind of interesting one. I do get a film called Bear, which seems like it's a really low budget thing.
Rated R, 2010. 3 out of 5 stars.
No, this is different. This is different.
Oh, really?
This is rated for children, and it's 2020.
Oh, incredible. Okay, so yeah, I have a movie that is definitely not that.
Same.
This is top 5.
Wow.
All right.
This is top 5.
This is
keyboards. Nah, we're just
going
to look on Amazon Bears. Yeah.
Just do a night where we watch like really badly rated Amazon movies that are like so awful that they're actually good.
It'll be like a Sharknado kind of thing.
Draxian says, "What the hell have I started just because I turned off my brain typing?" Hey man, some typos are the best thing in the world. This is how good content happens.
We're just going with the flow. Yeah. Paddington Bear, best British bear. So you guys have you guys have at least one bear, right?
Well, he was actually from Peru, wasn't he? He was from deepest, darkest Peru. But yeah. He just happened to be in the UK. What we should do is, I've just realised the Nightbot says, if you feel like buying Brian or Jay a beer, we should change that to bear. We should just say, if you feel like buying Brian or Jay a bear.
That'd be a great... I'm going to do that right now. That's a great inside joke. It's actually fantastic.
Gio's on it.
Oh, Gio's on it? Okay, thanks, Gio.
So, Drexium, you have entered the Hall of Fame for beers and bears.
There you go. You're officially an enormous influence on Top Clack, which isn't too hard. Big Amazon is watching. Oh man.
I mean, they're always watching. They own Twitch, so it's okay.
That's true. They are currently. I mean, I don't think anyone from Amazon is actually watching this show right now.
Well, I mean, technically, someone from Twitch might be watching. They might just be clicking through, and technically, they're an Amazon employee. So,
oh my god! Oh, you're right. You're right.
True,
man. Twitch staff.
Because they also removed on like when you click users in chat, they took away to where it says staff. So now they just appear in your users, so you don't know unless they talk.
But we've had Twitch staff in chat before, Brian. It's not unusual.
It's true. It's true. I always get scared when there's someone watching with that little wrench next to their name. Scares the bejeebus.
You think you're in trouble? Is that like?
I always think I'm gonna like say like something wrong, and they're gonna be like, "Oh,
have we been reported?"
I don't think so, but like it's just like maybe he'll just be like, "Oh, I don't like that," and then ban me or something, you know.
When you're in school and like the principal just comes in and just sits down at a desk in the back of the class, and you're just like, oh shit.
Yeah, I don't see DMC or functional in the user list. Yeah, they used to watch quite a bit of quite a few of our episodes.
I still chat to DMC every now and again. He still reaches out every now and again.
Functional's a nice dude. I met him last year at NorCal.
Nice. All right, I suppose we should maybe actually get the show started, huh? I guess it's around that time.
Yeah.
It's all about the Bears.
It's always about the Bears, guys. All right, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Top Clack. I'm your host Quakums, joined as usual by my lovely co-host Jay. And today we have a very special guest. If you haven't noticed, maybe your eyes just aren't on the screen. We have the wonderful 0siris of Mechs on Decks, half of Mechs on Decks. We got the arguably worse half of Mechs on Decks.
I was going to say, which way are you going to go on that?
I didn't even know which way I was going to go with that, honestly. I just picked. I flipped the coin in my head.
You decided in the moment, right? Yeah.
All jokes aside, though, we're definitely happy to have you, and thanks for taking some time out of your busy day to join us in this discussion stream, 0siris. How you doing today, guys?
Dude, I'm doing well. I'm excited. Had some good news today, so I'm excited. But yeah, what about you, Jay?
Can you share the good news?
Oh, I got a job, so that's cool.
Congratulations, man!
Whoa,
awesome.
What's that like?
Yeah,
feels bare, man.
After like 6 months of being furloughed and then let go, so yeah, it's fine. It's finally over for me, so excited about that.
Nice. Congratulations, man! Congratulations.
Nice.
Happy for you. Cool. Yeah, I'm good. And yeah, as always, it's 2 a.m. So like, as good as anyone can be at 2 a.m. That's me.
I saw you eating candy bars at 2 a.m. So I think
I think we call this a Milky Way in the US, but I had a Mars bar, which is a Milky Way in the US. But hey, gotta keep the blood sugar running at this time of night. I need some fuel to keep going, and there's no coffee as well.
Yeah, especially when you're lacking coffee.
Yeah. Like the wife has not been pulling her weight and didn't buy me any milk, so there was no coffee. Rip. I'm joking. She doesn't have to always buy my milk, but she looks after me.
Bless her soul, Jay. If she didn't look after you, where would you be?
Destitute and selling my body on a pier in France, probably.
That sounds like my upcoming job, actually. Alright, guys. Well, today we're going to discuss a little bit about the new Glorious board, the GMMK Pro, but we're also going to kind of use that as more of a reference point to talk a little bit about what mainstream means to the mechanical keyboard hobby and community, and maybe just some thoughts of our own on this as well. Of course, as usual, guys, we try to be a little bit more interactive with the chat these days, so if you guys want to just be a part of the conversation, please feel free and let us know your thoughts and opinions on things as well.
Yeah. So, 0siris, do you want to kick us off and tell us what have Glorious announced?
Yeah. So yesterday, this actually happened. Like yesterday afternoon, they announced the GMMK Pro, which is the kind of like their second foray into a somewhat custom board. If you're not familiar, they did have a GMMK line of, I think they had like a 60, a 65, and a TK, or 60, a TKL, and a full size that were hot swap, low profile. Pretty decent for the money, but not like anything to write home about. Like, it wasn't crazy. This is a foray to try to go a little bit further into our community. It's gasket mount, aluminum, rotary encoder, 75%, USB-C, still hot swap, goat stabs. What the hell are those? So there's a lot of stuff going on with this.
I remember in Discord, I think it was earlier today or yesterday, they were talking about the stabs and how the stabs were made with goat's milk. And apparently that's why they're called goat stabs. I don't know.
Goat's milk stabs.
I'm very interested to actually give some of those a try, though. But yeah, like 0siris said, this is a pretty interesting foray into I guess, I don't want to call it like the super high-end premium section of the keyboard hobby, because it's kind of not, but it does definitely kind of bridge the gap between that, our more premium $400, $500, $600 class boards that have, super tight QC and, all the bells and whistles. And then, conversely, you have the really entry-level stuff and OEMs. This is kind of to bridge the gap, and I think it's actually quite interesting. So just to get a few specs out of the way before we talk about how we feel about it. So it is an aluminum 75%, does have that knob at the top right, the rotary encoder. Gasket mount, it comes in black or white. PCB is kind of interesting. USB-C, it's programmable with what they claim to be QMK and VIA, as well as their own kind of proprietary software, which I believe is called Glorious Core. It's going to have per key RGB, hot swap, goat stabs, like 0siris mentioned. We don't really have a ton of details on those, but it'll be kind of interesting to see where that goes. And it has a starting price point of $170, and I'm going to assume that means without switches and keycaps.
Yeah, I think that's a safe assumption right now, and I think the place where I think should probably start on this is that word premium. So when we say premium in this hobby, and we are, more at the pinnacle of the hobby in terms of the kind of quality and aspects that we look for in a keyboard, I think what we need to remember is that this is bearing in mind for Glorious's actual target audience. This is premium, whereas for us, it's probably not. If you imagine that their audience is kind of the standard gamer out there that's already probably bought a GMMK, TKL, or something similar, this for them would be a premium upgrade. For anyone who's a regular keyboard user, this could be a premium upgrade. For us in the hobby, that word probably means something very, very different. You start saying premium, you start thinking Rama, you start thinking, Keycall, all of those kind of words. Will PCBs. That's the kind of thing that starts to come down into the fray of the mind. So I think we just need to bear in mind how this is targeted and what the audience for this is, rather than necessarily considering what our typical expectation of certain words are as well.
Exactly. I saw some people in the Discord server recently comparing it to much more high-end boards like the Satisfaction 75, which has admittedly quite a bit more going on with it than a board like this, but obviously at a much, much higher price point. So what do you feel about this, 0siris? Do you think this is an interesting board for the price? Do you think it's going to actually succeed?
I think it is an interesting board for the price, and we were talking about it last night after it kind of first announced. So we have a little bit more information today about it than yesterday. But I think it's, and I said this earlier in y'all's Discord, I think it's going to be worth every bit of $170. I would imagine it probably would punch maybe a little bit higher than that, but it's not necessarily marketed to the people who are like dedicated trying to get something like a Keycult, an Iron, a Satisfaction 75. It's marketed to the people who maybe are considering buying a group buy board and they already have like a Ducky board. Like they've already been kind of delved into the community in a little bit, and this is kind of like a next step. I think this is a good bridge for that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think in some respects it will pick up that gap. It'll be like, do I join a group buy or do I just get the GMMK Pro? It's kind of that sort of position. To me, it's kind of like that step up from the drop alts. And I know we talked about this a little bit before the show, but it's like the drop control and all. It's kind of the CU65 and those kind of entry tier boards that we see in the community. It's kind of like just one step above those, which is where the premium factor comes in for folks that aren't in the know and aren't in the hobby around all of the high end boards that we know and love. But yeah, I think it's definitely got a market out there. I think there's a lot of people out there that are going to see this as an upgrade from what they have today, even that don't know about the community. They don't know about all of these custom crazy ass keyboards that we have and make and all of that kind of stuff. So to those people that don't know and don't have any experience beyond standard keyboards that are on the market, this is going to be a premium product, and they're going to see it as that, and I think it'll do quite well because of that.
Yeah, I mean, with that in mind, it's almost like a good thing for the community. I mean, despite how you feel about a company like Glorious, to be putting out products like this at this kind of price point, actually a pretty good thing for like the community at large. Like, I know a lot of the really experienced enthusiasts might not like Glorious or might not like whatever they're doing because it's not it's not true custom or this and that, but at the end of the day, like you mentioned, Jay, a lot of the marketing for this is going to be a lot of the gamers, and this would be a pretty sizable upgrade over a lot of OEM boards, especially at this price, because Absolutely. It seems like not just in feature set is it kind of bridging the gap, but the price is pretty on point too. Like Osiris mentioned, it's probably going to be worth every penny of that $170. Something I'm a little bit more interested in. I didn't really go through the entire Reddit thread, but did they mention these keycaps that are pictured in the exploded view?
Yeah, they said that they would be coming later. Like, it's not ready yet.
Okay. But it said Q2, I think, Q2 2021. Yeah. I think it's in line with the ISO variation of this board because they're going to do a European ISO version as well. So I think that's roughly when the keycaps are expected to. Yeah, I didn't see any other information about them.
Yeah. We have Glarsis in the chat, and he says the talk of the week. I'm curious to know what Glarsis thinks about this, actually.
It's just glasses. He doesn't like it to be glasses. I had this conversation with him.
Oh, okay, my bad. I see. I just see a word and I try to like spell it out in my head, but I'll keep that in mind. Sorry about that. Shout out to Scrubby Sean with the 45 minutes. Man. Appreciate that.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things I did want to try and focus on today is how Glorious have marketed this as well. So, from our perspective, if someone set up and this is a completely different product and it's not going to go through Geekhack, it's not going to be interest checked and all of that kind of stuff. This is a big company doing something now, which we'll talk about later on. But if you just read those taglines at the top, GMMK Pro is an ultra premium gasket mounted 75% layout keyboard built for enthusiasts, gamers, and professionals. If someone used that tagline in a Geekhack IC, is this what you would expect to see?
No, not even close.
No, definitely not. But I mean, again, like you mentioned, like bigger business size and different audience, right?
Exactly. I was just trying to drive home that point about why they're marketing it this way and how different it is to the community. I've seen a few people, and I kind of had an ulterior motive for mentioning that, because I've seen a few people talking about this and saying, oh, it's the death of the community, it's the start of the, end of people making production run boards and key cults and, J1s, whatever other boards you want, it's the start of the end for that. And I absolutely don't think that's the case. I just want to put my point out on here and be really clear that I think this is OEMs seeing what an enthusiast hobby is doing and trying to replicate some of that success at a price point and a factor that the general public can understand. So most people that read this, they're not going to have a clue what gasket mounted means for a keyboard. They're not going to have a clue. If you're not in the know and in the hobby, like most people on the street would have no idea what that meant. And most people who are in Glorious's kind of marketing emails will have no idea what that means either. So I don't think that's the case, but this is the closest analogy I can give, and again I shared this with Brian and 0siris before the show, is if you imagine motorsport, loads of stuff has been experimented on in motorsport, and then it's found its way down into production cars that we all drive today. So if you think about ABS braking or steering locks or seat belts and all of that kind of stuff, it started off in racing motor series at the pinnacle of the sport, and then all of a sudden it's come down and it's there in every road car today. But that doesn't take away from the pinnacle of motorsport. That still happens. Your Formula One races, your NASCAR races, whatever sport you want to pick, those races still happen and those cars still exist, and they're still experimenting. They're still changing year in, year out, and they're still coming up with new ideas and innovating. And I think that this kind of stuff will push the hobby in maybe new directions, maybe explore new options, and start creating people to be more innovative, as well as bringing more people into the hobby as well, because they're starting to see how good a keyboard can be. This is going to be a huge upgrade from a GMMK TKL, and then people are going to say, well, what else can I do? And then they're going to find out about the community, and they're going to see all of this other stuff is possible, and that's going to increase creativity as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it facilitates the hobby more so than hurts it. I think, like people saying it's Satisfaction 75 killer, it's the this is going to ruin the hobby. That's that's not the case at all, right? I think what you'll have is you will see people, and it may not be a ton of people, but there might be people who were maybe trying to get something like super high end. Maybe they realize they don't need it and they just want this, and then they instead of just skipping all these steps, because one thing that I like to talk about is the keyboard journey. If you go through the different steps of having boards of different qualities, you really can kind of hone what you like, and you really start to understand what differentiates a board that is $160 and a board that's $700. And there's a lot of people right now that are just trying to jump from a Ducky or a KBDfans board or a alt to a key cult. And I feel like something like this could be a good gap, or could be a better point of entry for some people to start really kind of understanding some things and get their feet wet, rather than just going full in and not liking it.
Yeah, you need that. You need that frame of reference. I feel like it really helps kind of understand the difference in quality and performance you can get in an entry level board versus something that maybe is a little bit more mid tier like this. Then moving on to something towards the much higher end. I feel like for the most of the community, you generally have to be in the community for a while to want to start forking over, those super high-end key cult class prices, especially once you realize you have to buy keycaps and switches and all this and that. So I feel like this is going to be a pretty good gateway to kind of bring people into the hobby. And just like I know there's a lot of drama surrounding the glorious Panda switches that they put out not too long ago. But at the end of the day, that still, it puts a lot of eyes on our community, and it brings a lot of people in, and it does kind of build us up a little bit.
Yeah, and I think irrespective of what you think of GMMK as a company, this and how whether this board is any good or not is kind of almost irrelevant. Like whether we in the community think it's good or not is irrelevant. If people buy it, then it's going to bring them into the hobby, and it's going to bring an influx of new people who are going to start to realize that all of these other products exist. And I can only see it bolstering the community. I can probably see some interesting timelines where maybe other companies start to pick up on some of these high-end features, as we call them. Because I have to be honest, there's a few things about this board when we look at some of the renders later on that I'm not convinced about. But the more we see other manufacturers, and I'm not talking about makers and vendors here, I'm talking about actual manufacturers, big players like Glorious, and other people in that kind of vein, Corsair, Razer, whoever you want to pick. The more we start to see them pick up on stuff like this, and the more we start to see them take things from the hobby, the more it does is expose the hobby, and the more growth it brings to the hobby, which is only a good thing if we want to see more innovation.
Yeah. Glasses brings up something. He says, and to be honest, it just has to be better than everything else at the same price point. And I think that's going to be kind of a defining feature in a board like this as well. Because let's be real, like you're not really expecting this to compete with something that costs 2 or 3 times as much. It's kind of unreasonable, even though even the scale is different. Obviously, the Satisfaction 75 is is a much smaller run than something like this, so the pricing not always going to be
very nice.
The same scale there or whatever. But at the end of the day, this is not designed to necessarily compete with that super duper high end. It's just supposed to be as good as it can be in its specific price range, and I think they actually say that somewhere in here as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is literally just a manufacturer saying, there's this niche hobby that kind of touches on what we do as like a mass market thing. What can we take from them? What can we learn from them to try and do new things? And whether you agree with them coming into the hobby and taking some of the stuff out and kind of stealing some of our buzzwords or marketing words or whatever else you want to say, it's only going to lead to a growth in the hobby. That's the only direction it can go. As long as this product's reasonable and it sells well, which it's glorious, so it'll be fine. I've seen a couple of people in chat mention around the fact that because this is glorious and it's just going to sell and sell and sell, it's going to highlight more problems with things like the Satisfaction 75 group buy and other group buys that have had problems recently. With numbers and volumes and people being disappointed. And whilst I can see that, I think there's still a place for limited products. Like people are always going to get upset if they don't get something that they expect to be able to buy. There is an entitlement and an expectation that if something goes on sale, anyone has the opportunity to buy one of them, which is kind of difficult in a hobby where things are limited. So this will appeal to some of those people, and it'll give them more options potentially. But I don't see it having any impact on the premium boards and the custom boards that we see. I think that's still going to continue. This isn't going to kill off any part of the hobby that we see today.
Yeah, I don't think it will at all. Like I think what you'll see is you might actually see for a short period of time after this comes out, especially if it's good and people really enjoy it, you might actually start to see a reduction in people who are getting in some of the raffles. Instead of seeing 5,500 people entering the Bauer 2 raffle, it's 45 or 5,000, because there's going to be some people that are like, hey, this is enough for me right now. And that's kind of what I was talking about when getting into the journey, is that this board's going to be enough for a lot of people right now. But then as we get past, hopefully one day past COVID and we start having meetups again, and then people start getting out and they feel other things, they start to understand, oh, this is the differences, then it'll bring back up. And hopefully by the time that all happens, vendors will be scaling better and things will be in place, and it will actually, it'll be fine.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. Just 2 quick things. Big shout out to Raging Asian. Thank you very much for a 31-month streak. He says, Hornlo Frons? I assume that's
Ray, please.
something you know about, Brian.
Ray, please. No, it's fine. We're not going to talk about it.
Okay, cool. Okay, and the second one is there's a really good point from Kimchi Jody Boy, who says, "Just my 2 cents. My problem is not the products like GMMK Pro or GHP. Glorious as a company, especially their marketing, is suspicious. We saw it again with the GHP and Glorious trying to capitalize on Drop's Holy Panda scandal, and now this trying to capitalize on the market of beginners who didn't get in on the Satisfaction 75. IMO, that's somewhat predatory." Whilst I can see your point, I don't think that this product has been developed as a response to people not being able to get a Satisfaction 75. I think this product's been developed because someone at Glorious has sat down and said, what's really, really popular in this ultra high-end mechanical keyboard community? And they've seen that the Satisfaction 75 sells for a silly amount of money. They've seen that it won Mech Madness last year. They've seen that a round 2 was coming and loads of people wanted one. They've seen that 75% sells well. They've seen that gasket mount is a terminology that seems to sell everything these days. And they've seen that rotary encoders are included on 9 out of 10 interest checks. And they've just had this product in the works for a while. I absolutely don't think that they just came up with this on a whim because of the Satisfaction 75. But I do see your point in the fact that they are trying to take some of the, I don't want to say integrity, but take some of the kind of like the key aspects of the hobby and turn it into their own marketing. And I agree that could be viewed as predatory, but every company does that. So every big major corporation does that.
Yeah, I think if anything, it may be, and this might be why there's very few pictures right now. It may be everything that happened on Sunday with Satisfaction maybe accelerated them pushing this out in terms of this actual post. But they obviously were working on it far before. Yeah. Same thing with the Drop Panda versus the Drop Pandas situation. They had to have been working on that for a while. It's not like you just go from, oh, hey, they messed up, and then 2 days later have a press release and you announce a date to start selling things. So
yeah, I mean, and there's a couple of telling points that do point towards that as well, Osiris, that maybe they are trying to use that hype to drive their own sales a little bit, which is what I think is a fairer version of Kimchi Jody Boy's comment, is the fact that there's no actual product images. These are just renders. There's renders only. It goes on sale in 5 days time, 6 days time, unlimited reservations, and there's no products. No streamers have them, no YouTubers have them, no pictures of a real product. It's just renders. If we did that in this community, we'd be lambasted, and hey, most people don't even post an interest check these days about whether they should do a project before they've got prototypes in hand. So that kind of does worry me a little bit.
Yeah, it would be more reassuring to see some prototypes, some actual, real prototypes, and if possible, get them in the hands of some people that are, trusted in the community. I'm not saying us, because obviously we're like the least trustworthy people of all time, /S, but someone needs to check them out, right? Like someone needs to get their hands on this and actually give our community the information that we want. Because I will admit that it is strange to not have a proto here. And I think I'm going to scroll up and try to find this comment that was also by Kimchi Jody Boy. He says, I'll hold my reservations. I would like to see protos first before entering. Not having protos in a product like this as a flagship keyboard raises some flags for me. And I totally agree. I mean, especially because they're planning on launching it, or they're opening reservations in less than a week? 6 days from now?
5 days, yeah, 6 days. Well, it's 5 days for me and 6 days for you, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and sure, after the Satisfaction round 2 group buy, it does seem aptly timed at the very least. But like Osiris said, like they had to have been working on this beforehand, so it's not terribly surprising. Also, I would argue that like while it might be capitalizing on some of that market, it really is a different product, right? Like, it's not the same caliber of product, and just because it has the knob in the top right, just because it's 75 and it has a similar layout, doesn't mean it's the same thing, right?
Here's an interesting thought experiment, right? And I'll ask you guys both of this. If you thought you were buying a Satisfaction 75, but instead of getting the Satisfaction 75, you got this and a $300 refund, would you be happy?
That's a weird question.
It's interesting though, because that's effectively what we're saying is the possibility that Glorious is trying to capitalize on, right? You didn't get a Satisfaction 75, which is the board you really wanted, so you can save $300 and you can have this instead. Would you take that choice?
No, but that's because I'm not also the market for this keyboard.
Sure, and it's more of a thought experiment. Osiris, thoughts?
Well, given the fact that I currently have a Satisfaction 75 round 2 prototype on my desk, definitely not. Just like, I have a bunch of other keyboards, and this would be, for lack of a better term, a worse version of other keyboards that I have. Like, I even have a Orange 75, which is not an amazing 75% that I would prefer to use over something like this.
Sure, I like the sort of flex there in the background with all the keyboards. Yeah, but yeah, it's. I mean that's what we were saying though. That if Glorious is trying to use the GMMK Pro to snap up the Satisfaction 75, that's effectively what they're asking people to do. They're asking people to say, you didn't get a Satisfaction 75 for $500 or whatever it was. You can save $300 and have our product instead. I don't think anyone who's actually ingrained in this community would take that deal. Like, I genuinely don't think.
I completely agree.
I haven't checked chat to see what people have said, but I'd be surprised if anyone in chat would take that deal as well, because they realise the difference between the two products.
Exactly.
And that's just further proof that this is marketed towards people who are in that kind of glorious marketing sphere already. They have a TKL or whatever, or they're using a Wooting One, or they're using a Corsair or whatever, rather than being someone who's ingrained in the hobby. I mean, I think that's the biggest point of proof that we can use to take away that this isn't going to impact the hobby, because no one would take that deal.
Yeah,
it is. Oh, sorry.
What's chat proved me wrong, and like everyone said, yeah, we'd take it.
Chat is just a natural at proving us wrong. That's just how this works.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, it is interesting though that they don't have a prototype, because the MO of Glorious in the past, of like what happened with the Model O, the O-, the D, all their mouse pads, and even I believe the original GMMK line, they rely a lot on their YouTube partners to do a lot of marketing for them, because they rely on people like Random Frank P, Hardware Canucks, that whole genre of YouTubers to pitch these products to their and show them off to their communities. So it is interesting that they don't have those products out to people already. I'm assuming that they are probably already in talks. Or on the way, but
it is on the Reddit thread that streamers would get them. So,
cool. That's good to know.
I assume though, as you say, Osiris, that means the big players like Random Frank P or names like that in the Twitch sphere, rather than Mex and Deck and Top Clack and Man of Interest. It's going to be
maybe
Tehe,
maybe Teha types. That would be good. I'd be all right with that. Quick shout out to Brez for the tier 1 sub. Thanks, me.
15 months, nice.
Shroud will not get one. He has a custom board from Logitech.
I mean, just because someone already has a keyboard doesn't mean they can't try out a prototype, right?
Absolutely.
I that's not how those contracts work.
Anyways, scrolling down to this kind of exploded view, which is basically the best picture that we have of trying to learn how this board is going to feel, sound, and perform overall. What are your thoughts on this, checking out the exploded view? Obviously, we have a gasket mount system, but aside from that, how do you feel like this is going to perform in like the actual grand scheme of things?
My first thought when I look at this is it looks like a very cheaply designed case to machine and manufacture. The two pieces of it's basically a thin plate on the base with some posts for you mounting your gaskets on, and then it's kind of like a very thin edged top with some screw points, and that's kind of it. It's very, very basic in terms of that. So I think it'd be very cheap to machine and manufacture from that perspective, which is not unexpected. I have reservations on how the gasket mount system looks to work in this. It basically looks like it's more akin to what we would call a sandwich mount, but resting on a gasket. So I'm not sure I like the way they've marketed it as that perspective. And the other thing that jumps out at me as well is if they just basically shoved it full of foam. Like there is foam everywhere in this thing. And we tend to resort to that as a last resort rather than as a first design choice.
It's true, but it's not totally unheard of. For example, like the Polaris ships with both, if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, just like a board like the Polaris, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you don't actually have to use the foam in this board either, which is kind of cool. No. I'm okay with them including it as long as it's an option. If for whatever reason you have to use foam, then I start to get a little annoyed.
I think from the design of this that it actually comes built and all you do is push the switches, and I don't think this is like a kit that most people will take apart and take the foams out or anything else. I think that it will come with everything in place, and then you will just push your switches in, or if it comes with switches, it will already be in place. I suspect that most people will see the build on this one as literally just popping switches in without taking anything apart.
Yeah, and I mean that's their audience. That's who they're marketing it towards.
For sure.
Yeah,
which is totally fine.
I don't know. I have some strange things. I'm like Jay. I'm confused about the way the gasket will work. Typically, gasket plus hot swap's not always the best way. You need some way to support the PCB to make sure, especially because like in their Reddit post, they talked about using more flexible plates. So like possibly a polycarb plate. When you start running with polycarb, and you add in additional flex, that's when you start running into issues with like switches either getting unseated from the plate or unseated from the hot swap switches in a gasket mount with like considerable flex. Also, it doesn't look like there's very much room at all between the bottom of the PCB to the bottom of the board, which is interesting from a sound perspective, which may be why they're doing so much foam. Because when you have very little amounts of space, as strange as it sounds, boards tend to lean more on like the hollow sounding side because there's not really anywhere to go. It's just really loud no matter what.
You get metal reverberation immediately. Yeah.
And the whole foam thing is very interesting because their only switch that they manufacture is the Glorious Panda, which is modeled after a switch that is famous a lot of the time for its sound, and you're doing literally everything possible to make as little sound as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for anyone in the like this, okay, so being really crystal clear, this board has not been designed around feel or sound. This board has been designed around buzzwords. That's literally what they've done. They've said, we want to do something with a gasket. How does a gasket work? Oh, it sits on tabs with a bit of rubber. Right, okay, how can we put that in the cheapest possible case? That's what they've done. This board is not designed around how it will sound or how it will feel. Those are very much afterthoughts, which in the community, those tend to be at the forefront of most designers and vendors kind of processes. How can we make something sound good and how can we make it feel good to type on? And that's not the case with this board, I think, is my instant hot take.
Yeah. And that's why it's that gateway. It's that bridge. It's not... Sure. It's not the higher tier.
Yeah, I completely agree. Because I mean, the experience you like the experience you like actually have when you're typing on like a really high end board after coming from like a stock OEM board is pretty game changing, right? So to have something like this as kind of that middle step, I think is pretty nice. I think it's really easy to like presume how this is going to sound and feel, but you know, at the end of the day, we won't actually know until we type on one. So I don't know. I think it's totally fine to make the assumptions, though. It'll be interesting to see. I think one way or another, we need to get our hands on one of these and you know, take it for a little test drive.
Yeah. Should we talk about some of the other interesting things as well about this? So the goat stabilizers. How do you feel about the goat stabilizers that are factory lubed and cut screw-in stabilizers? That's marketing material from Glorious themselves. Factory lubed and cut goat stabilizers.
Well, I mean, okay. For starters, factory lubing stabilizers. That's not totally unheard of. Well, I guess maybe at the factory level, it's maybe a little bit more unheard of. But I know obviously like KBDfans has some offerings for boards that have pre-lubed stabilizers.
Yeah, don't ever take that option.
Yes, I mean, regardless of them being a sponsor, lubed or not, they were just bad stabilizers, and I swapped those out immediately. However, it's interesting to see this because we don't use the term cut, we use the term clipped, and even more interestingly enough, does that mean they're actually going to be like a true cherry style that is clipped, or are they going to be like what people used to call pre-clipped stabilizers with the more Chinese clone designs that aren't actually clipped, they're just manufactured without that leg?
Yeah, and as Syntaxa says, it doesn't mean anything to anyone outside the hobby. Basically,
True.
It's going to be akin to Duroc or C3 stabilizers are pre-clipped, which basically means they don't have the extra pins on them. That's what this is going to be. The lube is kind of interesting. I imagine they're going to go something cheap and cheerful. They're probably going to go dielectric grease because or silicone grease because it's cheap and it's inexpensive and it's easy to apply in great vast amounts. But yeah, I mean, what are the bets on these just being a rebranded Duroc?
Maybe. I don't think so.
Could be. That would certainly be interesting to. So, are they labeling them GOAT? Is that like their in-house branding?
That's their brand.
Okay,
that's the brand.
That's their branding. Yeah, I think that there's a good chance that these are either some cheap Chinese clone or the Durocs, or there's something similar, something we've already seen in the hobby and used, and they're just putting their own branding on them. That's my feel on this. Like they've just found, because we've seen stabilizers like this before. You can get Durocs in this colorway, transparent. You can get the old, well, there could be Zeals even. I doubt it at this price point, but we also saw, what were the other ones that we saw that were a clone of the Zeals really early on a couple of years ago? Everglide, I think, which was never quite decided if that was Duroc ones or not, because there were some differences. So I think it's just going to be Duroc stobs.
Soulful Tofu in chat says apparently lubed with G Lube.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
Their G Lube is supposedly. So I was looking it up earlier, and the reviews. There's a couple reviews, and I mean, obviously, take this with a grain of salt. Don't know the experience of the people who are reviewing these. Some people were saying that it sits between a 3204 and a 205 grade 0 in terms of thickness. So, which is interesting, especially because if these are Durocs, personally, I've been actually veering away from using 205 and looking to use something that's thicker, like a grade 2 or like a 206 grade 2 or a 205 grade 2, because there's just so much space in those stabilizers that it just eventually just starts rattling. Like
I do exactly the same. Yeah. G2 all the way, yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, they did change the wording on the Instagram post. I'm looking at it now. It says pre-clipped.
So
yeah, you might want to get up the Instagram page actually, Brian. Do you want me to send you a link to it? Let me drop this into chat for anyone in chat.
Yeah,
there we go. There's quite a few pictures of the board in here that we can take a look at. There's one that shows the base, which shows that it's got eight screws to hold it together, and it's got a very deep engraving for the glorious logo. And then there's one that does show the stabilizer, which you were talking about, 0siris. They come pre-installed, pre-clipped, and pre-lubricated. We'll also be selling them on their own. I think. See, that's not a picture. That's a render. So they could look something completely different to that in real life. That's just a render. So. The jury's out, but I feel like these are going to be Duroc or similar clones.
Which I think would... I mean, whether you love Duroc stabilizers or not, I think that's fine. Because on most boards that are already assembled like this, it's hot swap, it's not really expensive. I mean, what are you really expecting at that point? And I mean, I think most experienced enthusiasts that are buying this board are probably just going to swap out the stabs for something a little bit more tailored to them anyways.
Yeah, I just think it's what I was trying to say. Sorry, is I think it's rather than this be a new product to the Goat Stab, I think this is just something else that we've already seen rebranded. That's what I was trying to put across.
Sure.
They're not all similar to each other. So Paolo says Duroc or similar clones aren't all the stabilizer clones to each other. Yes and no. I would say that some are more cloney of others than not. So it depends on how you want to take that. But they're very similar. Yeah.
But the problem is clones. You start getting into big tolerance issues where it starts being past the point where you can fix the rattle with lube.
Yes. Yeah. There are good quality clones and poor quality clones. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, does anybody have any closing thoughts on this board before we move on to kind of our next segment of the show?
I mean, try one. I genuinely want to try one just to see what it's like.
No, this could be pretty cool. Honestly, it really could be. And they plan to keep it in stock too, which is pretty interesting as well.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people saying that this is a negative thing overall for the community. Whether you agree with Glorious themselves or not doing this, whatever you think of their practices or anything else, it's kind of irrelevant because they're going to do it anyway. And my view is that this is only going to add to the community. It's not going to take it away. They're just borrowing from the community, taking from the community what they think is the marketing buzzwords, and that's what they've done. They've designed it around the buzzwords. They've got the buzzwords. They've worked out what they are. They've designed something around that, and then marketing it based on that as well. But it's not going to hurt the community.
And I mean, that's fine. It's not like they're lying about it. I mean, it's fine to use the popular stuff, right? That's what a lot of the group buy runners and vendors have been doing anyways. Why do gasket mount boards exploded? Top mount boards got popular for a reason. Hot swap became a thing for a reason. Like there's a reason there are things on here, and I'm excited to see like where this goes overall. I'm not fully sold on it yet, but I think for the price, it could be really cool.
Yeah,
which seems to be
we should do. We should reach out to Glorious and see if we can get some of these goat stabs and one of these boards to test out. I think that's what we should do.
All right. After the show today, I'm going to message them, and hopefully they won't tell me to get the hell out of here.
I'll cap my thoughts off with something I agree that Chewy sent me, because I told him I was coming on, and I asked him if there's anything he'd like for me to say on his behalf. Nice. And he says, I think / hope it will be a great board for beginners and intermediate into the hobby. I do not think this board is an insert high-end board name killer. I think this board is missing some key components that high-end boards have. This is why I don't think this board is for everyone, nor it should be. But it is nice to see something that could help grow our hobby.
Okay, so Chewy basically summed up in 3 sentences what we took 45 minutes to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Brian. Why did you pick
he's the better half?
Why did you get Chewy on the show?
I don't know what I'm doing. Oh man, Chewy.
I'm joking.
Good people.
I'm joking.
Shout out to Chewy if he's watching right now. Shout out to I love Chuletas as well, who subbed at tier 1 for 8 months. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. What is a pro/premium board for experts? Oh man, that's a deep question, and we are going to end the show with a Q&A like we always do. So before we get there, let's just talk a little bit more about our thoughts on kind of what mainstream means in our hobby. And I know we've obviously talked about the GMMK Pro as a product, but let's talk about it and other things like it and what they're doing to kind of push our community forward, and if that's a good thing, and if we're on the same page. So just kind of get out of the way. What do you guys feel mainstream means? Like the actual term mainstream, the way people use it in the keyboard hobby. What do you guys think it means? And of course, Twitch chat chime in as well.
Yeah. Do you want to go first, Osiris?
Sure. I can go first. I think so. A lot of us in this community come from gaming. Some of us don't. Gaming recently has gone very mainstream, I would determine. There's a lot of quote-unquote normies that know about Twitch. Ninja is on The Masked Singer. Everyone, he's a household name. So I think things starting to go mainstream is that point where everyone that's also in the subset community starts to know about it. Right? Like once not everyone, but a majority of the gamers, the majority of the coders start to understand and know that this community exists, that's when it starts to become mainstream in my eyes. I don't think there's going to be a time, except for maybe way far down the line, where it's like custom keyboards are an actual household name thing. But I think it's more of once it starts being popular in the feeder hobbies that's when it starts to get more mainstream.
Sure. Yeah, I think I kind of agree with your definition. Mainstream to me means that if someone is in a related hobby, they might have an inkling about it. There's a good chance that they're going to know about it. Right now, if you went and looked at gaming, and you said, did you know that people are going out there, they're taking billets of aluminium, they're actually machining them into keyboards and designing their own PCBs, and they're putting gasket mount plates in there. They're going to go, what? They're not going to have a clue. So to me, that says it's not mainstream. But as soon as you can be able to go to an adjacent hobby or an adjacent business or an adjacent industry or whatever it might be, and they kind of had an inkling of what your hobby or interest or community might be doing, that's when you start to become mainstream, is my kind of view on it. And I don't think we're there yet, but I think that products like the GMMK Pro are going to start to push us in that direction.
Yeah, I completely agree. And so the reason I kind of wanted to ask that is kind of leading to this next question is this hobby becoming mainstream, and how are we accomplishing that? Because I have a little bit of reservation when it comes to that actual term, because as we move forward into the future, look how popular touchscreens have gotten over the last 10 years. Absolutely ridiculous. Almost every phone is touchscreen now. You know, this has just become the way we interface with most of our computers. And I feel like, to the average person, they don't actually need a mechanical keyboard, right? Most of them don't even need a desktop computer, or, you know, some of them don't even need a laptop computer. Most of the people these days just get everything done on their phones.
Or tablet,
or tablet, some kind of quick, small, easy touchscreen interface.
I'm seen as weird on the train, or when I used to be able to get the train before COVID for work, because I would sit there with my iPad Pro and I would use a mechanical keyboard connected to it. Like that people would look at me and say, "What the frick is he doing? Why isn't he just using the touchscreen, you know, or the actual folio case?" So,
yeah. But whenever I see mainstream get used in this hobby, I'm always worried, because I feel like, will this hobby ever actually be like truly mainstream? I feel like there's so much holding us back, and the farther we go into the future, sure, we're definitely growing as a hobby. We're getting, you know, the word out there. We're kind of coexisting with the gaming hobby now, and that's growing us a lot. We're in the mouths of a lot of tech YouTubers, and that gets the word out too. But at the end of the day, our product is kind of ancient, right? Like we're still using, and I've ranted about this before, but you know, it's an old idea, and we're kind of just rehashing it again and again, which is fine in a lot of ways. But like, why would a random average person need a mechanical keyboard?
So I think it's actually going to split into multiple parts, and some parts of the hobby will become more mainstream than others. And what I mean by that is that I don't think $500 custom blocks of brass milled into a keyboard shape is going to be mainstream. But what might become mainstream is people buying custom colored keycaps, you know, whether that be Taihao or HK Gaming or, you know, GMK or whatever other brand name you want to put in there. I think that is going to start to be, that's the kind of area where things are going to become more mainstream. Customizing existing things that are already out there is how a lot of this starts, you know, and keycaps is probably the easiest entry point for anyone in the hobby, because we have high-priced stuff and low-priced stuff, and depending on what your expectations on quality are, you can get something reasonable for pretty much any budget these days. So I suspect that there's going to be aspects of the community that become more mainstream before the whole community becomes mainstream, and I think there's some parts of the community that will never become mainstream. Buying a $900 key cult is not going to become mainstream the same way as buying a vintage Chanel handbag is not mainstream. You know, people know they exist, but, you know, not everyone goes out and buys a vintage Chanel handbag. Not everyone's going to go out and buy a $900 key cult.
I think you're right. I think it's going to be aspects will become more mainstream. I think the community and the hobby itself will gain an intense amount of depth. And by that, I mean, like, look at audio, right? There are people who consider themselves audiophiles, but maybe they have just a shit stack and, you know, some Sennheiser headphones they bought on drop, right? That's still a relatively expensive setup for a lot of people, but you can also spend an insane amount. You know, you can go all the way up to spend $6,000-$7,000, and there are things that are in between those price points, and I think that's going to be what happens. I think we're going to see a much more deep hobby where there's going to be things that are crazy insane because the community will be able to support it, because there's going to be there's going to be so many people entering the hobby consistently.
More crevice lighting, please.
Oh no, Jay, please! You had to say it.
But yeah, I think it'll get super deep. I think there's going to be a lot more available. There's going to be a lot more happening because there's going to be a lot more people. There's going to need to be more, and there's going to need to be things that are every price from $170, like the GMMK Pro, to maybe a couple $1,000s. You know, we don't know what that looks like in 3 years when, you know, Smith and Rune or Keycolt figures out how to do something crazy with a metal that's, you know, a precious metal.
Yeah, I think I absolutely think you've hit the nail on the head there and taken what I've said. It's right. Like, there's going to be aspects that are going to become mainstream, and there's going to be aspects that purely remain in the community, and the interest that products like the GMMK Pro and other manufacturers, DAS and Ducky and whoever else are going to start to step up the game on this, that's only going to increase the volume of people in the hobby, which will increase creativity. So crevice lighting aside, we are going to see a load of innovations over the next couple of years. As more people start to pick up the mantle and start to come into the hobby, we're going to see stuff we've not seen before. People are starting to integrate new things. You know, look at the rise of rotary encoders and OLEDs. You know, that's been on the rise for the past 2 years now. It's not going away. It's getting more and more prevalent. And I think we'll see more innovation, maybe not in terms of add-ons to keyboards, but more innovations across the whole projects that we see and across the whole way we design stuff in the upcoming years.
Yeah. Center in chat says, anyone using a laptop should use a keyboard, even if a cheap Taobao one. See, that's interesting because I don't think I know a single person in my my real life outside of the hobby that owns a laptop and uses a mechanical keyboard with it. I feel like the vast majority of the populace that owns a laptop, they're totally fine with the laptop keyboard, however shitty it might be, because it's still that interface. Not everyone craves the additional benefits that you might get from a mechanical keyboard. I think at the same time, it's fair to say not a lot of people don't know that there are benefits to using a mechanical keyboard. But yeah, I mean, how many people are going to carry around a laptop and then also carry around a mechanical keyboard with it? I think for people like us, that's like, well, yeah, duh, of course you're going to do that because you love mechanical keyboards. But to the average person, it's like, are you kidding me? I have to put a keyboard in my bag now, too? Like,
yeah, it's not going to happen, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a couple of quick shouts. Streaking Bison 420, a good conversation, gents. Thanks very much, man, for that. 420. Nice. And then 93 Horror Show said, when there are keyboard drama channels on YouTube, that's mainstream. Hey, man, you are clearly not looking hard enough because those already exist. They are a thing, man.
Yeah, you should definitely check out Mechs on Deck.
I was about to say, have you watched Mechs on Deck? Come on.
I'm just kidding.
No, and I think someone, let me see if I can find it. Wave Depth says, I think it will plateau. There are so many people who will be pulled into the infatuation of Switch and board acoustics that are also willing to spend 500 plus. Some sort of risk for flippers coming into the hobby. Yeah, I don't think it will ever plateau, honestly, because if you look at things like sneakers, you look at things that are in similar points, right? Like the difference between a Jordan 1 that sells brand new for $170 versus a Jordan 1 you can run over to Foot Locker and buy for, $119 or maybe even less because maybe it's on sale. It's like $90. That's not a huge difference. There might be maybe they're using a little bit better leather, but there's more people trying to get those shoes every day. There's more people that are willing to spend more and more money for those boutique products because they're boutique. There's people that are always transitioning to being more interested in that.
Yeah, and you have to remember right now it can't plateau because there is more demand than there is supply. Everything sells out almost instantly. So we can't plateau unless we can fulfill that demand and go back to the days of old where 4 years ago you would put a group buy up on Geekhack and you would put it up for 6 weeks because you knew it would take 6 weeks to get enough people to buy the product, right? right now we're at a position where if you put up a new group buy every single day, Monday to Friday, and each one has 500 units, you can guarantee pretty much that as long as the boards aren't wacky and crazy and too out there, they're all going to just sell. They're just going to sell. They're going to go. You put 2 Alice clones up there, 65% up there, 60%, and a TKL. You know that week all of those boards, 500 of each, will sell. So we can't hit a plateau until we can meet the demand that is there, and supply doesn't do that right now. So plateau is way off in the future.
Remember last year when the Polaris sold over 1,200 units in a month, and we were like, "Holy crap!"
Yeah,
and the Satisfaction 75 sold over 1,200 units in 20 minutes.
Yeah, and you have to think like the halfway point between that was the Think 6.5 V2 selling 3,500 in a month. Halfway between that, and that was seen as huge. Like it was double the Polaris numbers, and now we're seeing the Polaris numbers in a day. In 6 months' time, are we going to see Think 6.5 numbers in a day?
Probably. I wouldn't. It could be in 6 months. Who knows?
Maybe.
Who knows?
Maybe.
Kimchi Jody Boy says, I take issue with the term hype. It implies that there is gaining popularity with a foreseeable endpoint or plateau. Fidget spinners were hype, Beanie Babies were hype, knives, audios, cars, clothing, keyboards don't seem to be hype as there is no foreseeable endpoint to the growth. Interesting take.
Yeah, I think there's two definitions of hype though, right? There's hype for a product range, which is what you're referring to there. Hype for individual products is very different. Like if there's one particular group buy that is highly hyped and people are all trying to get into it, like the Polaris or whatever else, I think that's a little bit different in terms of how you determine what hype is compared to hype as a product range. I think you're absolutely spot on when you talk about the hobby as a product range and you talk about it as hype for the hobby. I think you're spot on. When you talk about it as hype for an individual product, I think it's a little bit different, and that does exist.
Yeah, I think it's also worth pointing out the difference between something that's like functional versus something that isn't. And I think like fidget spinners are like not nearly as much of a necessity as like, I don't know, clothing or
don't you dare tell me my Beanie Babies were not necessary, Brian.
I collected them too, man. I
got my Weenie and Nuts back behind me, okay?
Right? Yeah, I mean, I don't have them here, but I have some at home from me back in the day.
Please clip that sentence out of context.
Please, shout-outs to Lang for providing my Weenie and Nuts.
Oh,
and also clip that out of context.
I hope he provides some other things as well.
Woo! Tempest guys.
But I mean, yeah. At the end of the day, I think something like you bring up knives and audio and cars, and like those are all like pretty functional things at the end of the day. But things like fidget spinners and Beanie Babies, maybe not so much. Although I get where you're coming from on the hype for sure.
It's the difference between using it as a negative term and using it as a positive term. Like you walk up to someone and be like, "Man, those shoes are hype." Like that is a term that some people use to say like those are good, right? And then, oh man, that was hyped to hell. Those fidget spinners were hyped like crazy, but they weren't. They weren't needed. It just depends on how you use the word.
I got a Rama fidget spinner right here. I actually still use this.
I'm
that guy.
Well. In fact, one of my machinist friends sent me something a few weeks ago. It's not a fidget spinner, but it's a little bit of metal that actually I can't show it. Maybe I'll show this on a build stream. There's a little bit of metal that's kind of shaped and burred. So it's kind of like burred across the top, and if you flick it, it rolls. Even though it's a square, it will roll, which is kind of really interesting. Anyway.
Interesting. Okay.
Just to the side, but I do have like fidget toys.
You should show that off on a build stream. I kind of want to see how that works now.
Yeah. Okay. I'll show it off on a build stream. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Where were we? I kind of got lost.
Mex on deck in chat says "Boo 0siris." Oh wait, wrong account.
Wow.
What's up, Chewy? How you doing?
Oh golly, Huey, thank you so much for the Twitch Prime sub, man. Very, very kind of you. Weenie and Nuts, says K-Wub. All right, everyone's on the Weenie and Nuts train now, apparently.
Weenie and Nuts, yeah.
Dude, I can grab them if chat wants to see them.
I don't know what they are,
I think
I think at this point you have to. Yeah, that's just the way it is.
There he goes. Why
are you flexing your fidget spinners? I don't need to spend more money on things. Oh man, This was part of the Rama fidget spinner group buy catastrophe on Mass Drop.
Wow, that brings back some memories.
This has a Kong bearing though, so it's actually like a lot better. It spins for like 5 minutes. It's pretty nuts.
How cute is that?
It's my Weenie and Nuts, little wiener dog. That's their actual names.
Oh, that is really adorable. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I didn't realize Beanie Babies still existed.
Oh, of course they do. They're massive still. They're huge. They still make thousands of them a year.
I
his
believe
name's
it.
Weenie.
Chewy, thank you very much for the beard comments. It's getting there. It's not quite to your levels, dude, but it's getting there.
It looks good. You grow a great beard, Jay.
And do you know what? I didn't know that until 2020. So some good things have come out of this year.
Quarantine has changed your life for the better, apparently.
Yeah. And this is after I shaved it off once for charity. So, hey.
All right, guys. When in doubt, weenies and nuts out.
When in doubt, weenie and nuts out.
I just keep seeing weenie and nuts in the chat now, so it's just like all I can think about is weenie and nuts.
Dude, that's how we get this hobby mainstream. We clip that, and then we put it on live stream fails, and then people will come to Top Clack, and then they go down the hole of custom mechanical keyboards.
Buying $500 keyboards.
That is way too big brain for me, Osiris.
Flawless.
You are way too smart. Anyways, weenies and nuts aside, let's get back to our discussion here before we roll into a Q&A segment. Because I think it was Osiris that added this that I think is a really good question. What effects will more releases like the GMMK Pro have on higher end GBs? What do you guys think?
Can I? Right, my first instant answer to that is none whatsoever.
That's what I was thinking.
The GMMK Pro and higher end group buys, whilst they both might use that premium tag or people might call them premium, they're in two entirely different contexts. And realistically, I think that the GMMK Pro is an entry-level device and will hold no candles, and no one who ever understands the hobby will ever expect it to hold a candle to something as premium as, say, a Keycul or a Rama or whatever other insert high-end board here. Smith & Rue, you pick a board, insert high-end board here. It's never going to do anything. The only thing that it's going to do is it's going to make more people interested in them over time.
Yeah, I put this on here because when I was thinking about this earlier, I don't know if anyone else sees this, but I see similar parallels to what happened with Mekanisk when the 5 degree and the Tofu came out, which were seemingly basically copies of Klippa and Fjell at a much lower quality. But a lot of people had the same narrative that we're seeing right now of like, oh, you don't need to buy a Klippa anymore. You don't need to buy a Fjell. You can get it for $70. But what it did is it gave Leandrin an opportunity to basically go back to the drawing board and do more aggressive things with his design that KBDfans, or in this situation, Glorious, just can't do. It sparks, like you said, it sparks innovation on the higher end, and I think those buzzword things are going to start making people be like, you know what? Well, what else can I do? What can I do to take this to the next level?
Yeah, for sure. You're absolutely right. And the exam question at the end of that is, did it hurt Leandrin's sales at all? And the answer to that is no, because the Klippa and the Fjell sold 900 units in the last run each, or whatever it was.
They're still selling like hotcakes every time he puts up a pre-order. Like they just
and
they are vastly different boards. I've spent a lot of time actually comparing Tofu and 5 degree to Fjell and Klippa, and they feel and sound very, very different, despite looking like a little bit similar. So very, I mean, the harder aluminum, different quality of finish. I mean, let's be honest, the 5 degree has like some of the worst finishing I've ever seen in my life. I looked at that thing and it scratched itself. It was absolutely wild. And I'm not even kidding. Like that's actually what happened. But I mean, they're both different products that fit different parts of the market. And I think there's room for both of those types of products to exist, because not everyone has hundreds and hundreds of dollars to spend.
Yeah, crazy thing though. If you look back to when you joined the hobby, did you ever think that boards would sell out like this? And I know this is kind of at a tangent, but Osiris, when you joined, did you think that boards would sell out as fast as they do these days? Did you ever think that was possible?
Not at all, because it was like in a time when boards ran like once every like month, maybe. More often than not, it was like once a quarter. And key
Do I
sets
want to
were
join
like
this monthly group buy, right?
And key sets were literally one a month max.
A key set group buy was a big deal. A big deal. It wasn't like, oh, there's 30 this week. Like it was actually like everyone in the community knew about it. You know, like everyone that was interested in buying a key set was going in on it, because like you didn't want to wait 2, 3, 4, 5 months for the next group buy, right? Like it was a big deal.
Yeah, it's like, I don't really like the colors of this, but it's the GMK set for this month. There isn't another one until next month.
It. So GMK.
Yeah. If you said back then to any one of us, in 3 years' time, every GMK set will sell 500 minimum, and you'll have some that sell 7,000 sets, you'd have gone like, dude, like, we're not even hitting 150 here. You know, it's never going to sell 7,000. And here we are. We're doing it.
It's crazy too, because like back then, you know, spending $140 for a key set was the norm. And like now you see $140 key set and people are like, what the hell? Like, why is it so expensive? Yeah. And I'm like,
does it come with gold?
Like, what? But it's crazy. And I've told this story. I've told the story before. There was a point in 2018 where I was like, I might just start buying, you know, every GMK set that released, because there's only one a month. And I was like, and then I get them, and if I just don't like it, I'll just sell it and use that money to buy the next one, you know. And like, it wasn't like I'm trying to flip them. It was like, if I just don't like it, then I can just get rid of it and I get my money back, because things were like still selling for like it was extras price.
It was $20
crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
And do you know what? There was a time when I did exactly that. There was a time when I was in the community, and every time a key set ran, I just bought it. Like, you go through my collection, and pretty much every set from the early days that ran through GMK or SA is or Signature Plastics is in my collection, because I just bought whatever the group buy was for that month. Or even if you go back to like 2014, 2015, it was like there was like three key set group buys in 2014 or something for GMK, and it's like I bought every single one of them. And then you hit that midpoint of 2018 starting to push into 2019, and then you just can't keep up. Like now, 15 key sets a month is not unheard of. No one can buy all that stuff. No one can buy every single key set anymore. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah. Center in chat says, it could make it harder for new designers to start basic group buys because they need more knowledge to create something compelling for the community. If the simple stuff is mass-produced and cheap. See, I think when people think about like mass-produced and cheap stuff, and I'm sure like some people will attribute this to the GMMK Pro, like when you join like a really premium group buy in the keyboard community, like it's usually a product that offers something that like no other keyboard does, like, or it looks completely unique, or like you really like the designer, for example, or there's lots of other reasons to like join a group buy aside from like, I think I'll like this board. And I feel like you're not really going to be putting any kind of strain on people running these group buys, or like the vendors within the community, because like their products are still going to be successful because it's a different audience, and B, you know, often people are buying them for different reasons to begin with.
Well, I think that's where you start getting into what I was talking about the hobby gaining more depth, because what you're going to start seeing is you're going to start seeing more private group buys, and those new designers are going to be able to try things out, and they're going to be able to be like, hey, friends, yeah, I know you like keyboards. You're in the community. Buy this. Help me out. See if it's good. Example A, Chewy with the Baka, right? 20 unit group buy, did it himself. Then he, a couple months ago, did a bigger run of like 90 units of the Squid. It changed names, but you know, that's what they did. Drifting Bunnies did a small run of Austin round 1, and then he scaled up round 2, and now he's doing a couple other boards. It established himself as a designer. I mean, I think there's always going to be ways to do it.
Yeah, like the original JR1, there was 14 people joining me as well. There was 15 of them, and then we sold 400 of them a couple of months ago. The Revision 1. You know, it's the way into the hobby, and it's the way to do that kind of thing. And you know, one of the it's a real aside is this, but one of the reasons why I started Prototypist was to be able to try and help people make one-offs and stuff like that they wanted to be able to make. And there's been quite a few that I've funded out of pocket because people can't afford to do it or they've not known how to do it, and you know, help them get a board that they wanted that they couldn't otherwise have done, and they have the only one in existence because it's something they wanted to try. So you know. I think you're absolutely right that the opportunities will always be there for people to start designing stuff, and as long as they're open and honest about what they're doing, I think private runs, small runs, that's absolutely going to be the way forward for a lot of the projects before we see big numbers from new designers.
Yeah, and a lot of those group buys tend to be designed like with the enthusiast community in mind versus something like Glorious's audience, for example, which are primarily gamers. So I feel like there's kind of something to consider there as well. All right. Well, I think now's probably a good time to maybe roll into a Q&A. We can, of course, keep talking about this during the Q&A if you guys have any questions. We can try to get those a little bit easier. We're going to talk about our sponsors for just a moment, and then we will roll into the Q&A. But you guys can start asking questions right now. You can use the @TopClack tag. Ask whatever you want, obviously, as long as it's appropriate for the stream, I suppose.
Yeah, as long as it don't break terms of service, or we can answer it without breaking terms of service.
As long as we're not, let's not break terms of service. I think that'd be really fun. Anyways, while you guys are getting your questions together, let me tell you a little bit about Novel Keys, because Novel Keys is fantastic. We love them, and they have numerous things going on right now. GMK Honor has started now, so that is available if you're kind of into that Japanese aesthetic in your GMK sets. There you go. That is live right now. As well as what's still available is the Random Frank P edition of the NK65. And whether you know who that is or give a damn or not, I think that's totally fine. At the end of the day, this is still a pretty awesome kit for the price. $190 gets you everything. Gets you the entire keyboard, the switches, the keycaps, stabilizers, the cable. Comes with a carrying case. It's arguably the best bang for your buck you can even get in the community. And I think that's pretty awesome. So more NK65s are on the way as well in his most recent update, he has stated. So that's pretty cool too. So wait on those if you're an NK65 appreciator. Otherwise, there's lots of other things in stock, from switch openers to switches, stabilizers, lubricants, if you're a big fan of the lubes. There's lots of things going on, so make sure to check those out. And if you're buying something in stock, use the promo code ClickClack, one word, no caps. And that just shows Mike of Novel Keys that you love us and gives you 5% off your in-stock order.
Absolutely. Moving over to our second sponsor of the day, it is Kono with Input Club. A few things that they have available. If you want to look at GMK Rainy Day, you still can. That's still in pre-order. You can still join the group buy for that now. Quite an underrated set, and one that I've joined myself. There's also GMK Retrocast. Now, if you do want to pick this one up, if you like a bit of a brighter set, you know, that's kind of your thing. This does end tomorrow, so if you want to join on this one, you need to join it ASAP. The 6th is the last day for this one, so definitely take a look at that if you're interested, and if you haven't picked it up, make sure you do. There is also a new group buy just started as well for GMK Pride. Now, I saw this in the interest check. I didn't realize it was going into group buy quite so quickly, but GMK Pride is now available as well. So if you're interested in a bright rainbow colored set, then this might be something up your street. I think this is the 3rd rainbow set we've seen in the community now in GMK. So if that's something that interests you, it's there and it's available. Finally, if you want to look at an OEM type board, then you can check out the Hex Gears boards that Kono offers. These are really great starter boards for anyone coming into the hobby. Like we've been talking about all show, you know, if you need to get someone into the hobby, if you want to try introduce someone to a laptop and keyboard combo, then this might be the way that you can do it, by helping them purchase one of the Hex Gears boards, because they're a really great entry level product into the hobby as well. So definitely take a look at those too.
Yes, speaking of entry-level stuff in the hobby, I think KBDfans is a great place to start as well. They're pretty much a one-stop shop. Caps, switches, PCBs, cases, plates, you name it, they probably have it. They have a couple things going on right now. The Melody 65 is still available at a starting price of $239. Not too bad. That's up for a little while longer. So if you're into 65%, that one could be for you. Kind of a cut-down version of the Melody 96, for those of you that remember that. There's still a couple other things going on right now. One thing I do want to see which is pretty awesome, is the KBD 6.7 Lite. Really interested in this because this is going to start at $99, and it's kind of like sort of a competitor to the NK65, if you will. So this is definitely something that's catching my eye, and hopefully it'll catch yours as well if you're into that kind of value-centric sort of thing, as I am. If you're not really a fan of the keyboards and maybe you want some key sets, the group buy is still open for Enjoy PBT Scatty, or Skatey. I don't actually know how this is pronounced still because I'm a terrible person, but I like the colors. So that's still in group buy right now as well, if that's more up your speed. But yeah, pretty much anything else, they probably have you covered. And if you're really trying to ball out on a budget, make sure you take a look at their B-stock market. Sometimes they have stuff in here, sometimes they don't. Sometimes the things they do have in here that are really insane value sell super duper quickly. So I highly suggest you check out this if you're trying to ball out on a budget here.
Cool. Okay, and jumping over to our final sponsor of the day, it is Leandrin at Mekanisk. So the WC60D PCBs are back in stock. So if you're looking for a really, really good, solid 60% PCB, it's designed by Wilbur. It supports ANSI and ISO. It's a really, really good choice. It's my kind of de facto go-to default 60% PCB. Same. So if you do need one of those, definitely check that out. He also has his new plates for tray mounts in the Ultra Hot and Ultramarine colorways, as well as a couple of other choices in stock as well. So definitely take a look at those if you already own a 60% board and you're looking for a bit of an upgrade. Finally, the Duroc Ultramarine stabilizers are available on store as well. So I've tried some of these out. They actually have like a dual colorway where the housings are translucent and the inserts are opaque, and they're really stylish and they look great as well. So they're a great colorway, that Mekanisk Ultramarine branding. So if you're interested in some stabilizers, definitely do check those out because they're kind of good. And of course, we have the E Ultra Hot Fiel and Clipper, as well as the Mekanisk switches tees. So I think the Mekanisk switches are coming very, very soon. And of course, the E Ultra Hot colorway that both Brian and I are quite interested in is coming soon too. And from what I understand, we're getting both samples of both. So can't wait to check those out and try those out and share with you guys what we think of them.
I am so freaking stoked to get my hands on the E Ultra Hot Fiel. Oh my god!
Yeah,
the pictures I've been seeing in his Discord are wild.
I might finally have a home for GMK laser.
And I don't really care about colors. Like everyone knows I'm not the color guy, but like when I saw the pictures of this, I was like, holy freaking crap! That looks fantastic. All right, getting over to our Q&A. Looks like we already have quite a few questions rolling in. I'm gonna scroll back a little bit here, guys. Bear with me.
I think the first one was from One Drunk Man. He tags in and says, "I am not drunk, but I have to leave. Bye." Well, thank you very much for being here, One Drunk Man. Thank you very much for sharing the time.
We appreciate you showing up. I'm sad to see that you're not drunk and that you have to leave. But hey, everyone has to live their own lives, and hope you have a good rest of your night. All right. Apparently, we dropped some frames again. Why does this always happen at like this time of the show? What's going on here?
I don't know. It could be when you're like on the vendor websites.
Oh, maybe. So? Yeah, it could be.
It could be. Okay. I've closed all those now. Hopefully, if that's the cause, hopefully that'll be fixed now. Cool. Dodo is asking, would you consider getting a GMMK just for review? Yeah, I would totally review that board. I'm going to message them after the show and ask. They might tell me no, which is totally fine, but they might tell me yes, which is pretty cool. So we'll see. Just
before we move on to the next one, I just want to say that there's a comment here from I Don't Make My Bed. He said Glorious getting rid of the gatekeepers, and then just a little bit further down, Edgy Tween says Glorious is really exposing the gatekeepers. To be honest, I'm interested for you guys to come back and tag us and tell you what you guys mean by those comments, because I might disagree with you. So just come back and clarify what your comments mean, because I think that could be a good discussion point.
I think that, I'm not really sure what he means by Glorious getting rid of the gatekeepers, but I think when
I don't want to assume before I take a stance on that one. So I just want to clarify.
Okay, we'll get back to that. We'll get back to that. Scrubby Sean is asking, not exactly a keyboard question, but what are your opinions on fasting? After a month of fasting, I'm down 12 pounds. I've gotten a lot of mixed opinions and want to know what you guys think. I'm assuming you mean intermittent fasting. In which case, in which case, I would say it's pretty awesome, because I've known quite a few people that have taken to intermittent fasting, And man, they are like all seeing results. Like everyone that I know that has done it has seen noticeable results. So I haven't done it myself, so no comment there. But I wouldn't hesitate if I was interested in something like that.
Yeah, one of my buddies, Moon, he does intermittent fasting, and he's like super strict on it, and it worked out really well for him. I've got a couple other friends I used to work with. They both did it as well, and they saw great results. I've even some friends that do like even a little bit more aggressive intermittent fasting where they literally eat like once a day, and it works out really, really well for them. Wow. It's just discipline at that point.
Yeah, I'd struggle with it. I know I would, because my eating habits are not the best, and my sleeping habits are not the best. Hence why I'm sat here at 3:30 on a Friday morning chatting to you guys. But yeah, I think I'm all for it. I think like there's a lot of benefits to doing it, and I haven't seen too many negatives for it. So yeah, something like the 5-to-2 fasting ratio seems quite good.
I should start doing it, honestly. Maybe I should. Warforged Speed forgets to tag us, but he says, "Hey guys, is there any open source firmware for the Tex Yoda?"
I think it's just their proprietary one, right?
I think they have their own, right? I don't think there's an open source one.
I think it's just the firmware that they have on them. I don't even know if it's programmable. I don't think I ever even built it.
It's been a while since I've heard that name.
Ask in the Discord, because if you ask in the Discord, someone will know the answer instantly and will be able to help you.
In theory, it could be ported to QMK, right?
I mean, anything can be ported to QMK if you work hard enough and you ask Merlin hard enough.
Yeah, here's what you do: you get one, you send it to Merlin, and you say, "Please, please, please, Master Merlin."
Yeah,
and then hopefully, if you're lucky, it'll be in QMK. And there you go.
I'm just having a look
if it's
on
not
the
already.
Site now. There's a build guide. I'll drop the link to the build guide in chat. I haven't read through it, but there might be something in the build guide that tells you about it. There you go.
You know who would be a good person to ask is I am me, you are you. You think he has a buddy that's like big into the different text boards?
Oh, really? Interesting. I've only got the one where they actually had the pre-drilled GMK caps, so they actually had the for the nub mouse in the middle, but they were actual GMK caps that had been put into some sort of jig and been drilled to allow the nubbin to move. And that was how it was sold as a group buy board.
Just while we're on that topic, someone in chat was asking who Merlin is. Mech Merlin. Someone else answered there. No spaces. Twitch.tv/Mech Merlin. He has his own Discord and various other things. He's a streamer. He's a content creator. Great guy. He's local to me. Super duper nice. And he does a lot of work with QMK. All right, Mech's on deck, who I'm assuming is Chewy, is going to ask to Jay, as a vendor now, how do you feel about the growing issue with toxicity towards vendors and what many people are claiming are unfair group buys or unfair launches for highly sought-after boards, such as the J01, etc.?
Okay. So I have a few thoughts on this. I think first of all, if it's a limited product, no one has a right to have that limited product. You have an opportunity to try and buy it. So getting salty because you didn't get something that's limited, it feels like a bit of a faux pas. No one's entitled to that.
No one's entitled.
Can you express dissatisfaction about that? Absolutely, 100%. You know, you can be disappointed that you didn't get in on something. That's completely fair and completely valid. What I don't like to see is I don't like to see people getting death threats like Mike did at Novel Keys, and I think Upas had some as well, just because someone didn't get a product that they wanted to buy. Like that's just unfair. These are people at the end of the day that are working hard, often around a day job, to try and provide a service and a product to people because they love what they do, not because they are trying to make money necessarily, but because they absolutely believe in the product and they want to share that with people. That's the part behind it. You know, the other side of toxicity that I see often is people saying, "Oh, this group buy shouldn't have been run," or "There's a problem with this keycap set," or whatever. Like, all of the vendors want to fix that for you. You're more than welcome to share your findings in Discord servers and everything else and say that you had a problem with X, Y, and Z. But you know, if you reach out to the vendor, 9 times out of 10 they're going to try and make it right. Like, if someone reached out to me and says, "Oh, 3 keycaps were missing in this keycap set," or "it was damaged when it arrived," I'll just send them another one, because there's no point in me arguing. I want them to be happy. And I think all of the vendors feel that way to a greater or lesser extent. They don't want customers to be unhappy because the vendors have a public facade and face, and people know who we are. It's not like we're hidden, secretive away, and we're behind some big faceless corporation. It's one or two people that have some warehouse somewhere that are trying to do things for the community. So I think toxicity against vendors is something that is difficult to try and stem, and I understand why people get upset, and I understand why people feel the way they feel sometimes, but they just have to stop and think that this is a small hobbyist niche community with a few people behind each company at most. I think that the largest vendor has 5 people working for them. It's tiny businesses, and no one has a right or entitlement to any one product, but you can express your dissatisfaction in not getting something in a constructive way rather than being negative about it.
Yeah, when it devolves to death threats, like, what the hell? Really? Like, how could anyone go that far because you missed out on a group buy? That blows my mind.
Yeah, interestingly, there's like some really interesting stories that I can give for this, like some anecdotes. Like, I've never had a death threat as a vendor, but I did have a death threat for using ISO once. Go figure. Also, people who use bots, when you cancel their orders, and you email them to say, I've cancelled your order because you botted it, they never come back to you. They never complain, and they never come back to you. So yeah, a couple of little anecdotes for you there.
Nice. Really interesting question coming from Lunar Sama. He says, you are rebuilding your keyboard collection from scratch. What are your must-have keyboards? You have the ability to get any keyboard from now to the first time you enter the hobby.
Oh man.
Well, I mean, is it
how many?
How cheesy? Yeah, I was
how
say,
many? Yeah.
How cheesy?
I mean, I
is
know
it to just be like all of them.
Should we assume like 5? Let's assume 5.
Okay, yeah. There's got to be some kind of stopping point for sure.
Okay, because I've been thinking about this for the last like 5 minutes because I saw it, so I already have a pretty good list. So I can go first.
Go for it. Please. Yeah, go for it.
All right. So number 1, I'm gonna re-get and have made my Baka 60. A board means a lot to me. It's Cerakoted in OD green, pairs perfectly with GMK Olive. If you're not familiar, on Mechs on Deck with Chewy. It's Chewy's board, my best friend. So it was his first foray into design and keyboard creation. So it means a lot to me there. So I definitely would get that. I would get both my Bauer and my Iron 165 in their current configurations, just because those are 2 of my favorite boards right now. I would get probably a Satisfaction 75. I was telling Chewy the other day, every day that I type on this board more and more, I want one more and more. And then, so that's 4. 5 would be the Phantom Key Colt number 2. I had an opportunity to purchase that board, but unfortunately I could not afford it at the time. But yeah, I've always loved the number 2. It's a toss-up between that specific version of the board or a stainless steel bottom, but those would be my go-to.
I still need to build
5.
my Phantom number 2 just to rub it in there and flex on you a little bit. I still need to build it. It's been sat in the warehouse for like 3 months. I've not built it yet.
That is like truly a flex board lately too. And the color looks like, in the pictures that I've seen, looks so good.
It is a really good purple. Yeah. Okay, what about you, Brian? What 5 boards would you go for? Because that was a great list from 0siris.
Yeah, really I think. From any time now to when you first entered the hobby, this is an interesting question. I think I would have to have my round 1 Fiel. That board meant a lot to me, and I had to get rid of it like years later because I like couldn't afford rent, and I was like selling off like a lot of my collection because of it. But I had planned to buy it back from the person that I sold it to, and then they wound up selling it to like someone else, and then it went to someone else, and like I've actually like tried to like track down like where that board is to try to buy it back. But yeah, I had the original round 1 005 Fiel, and that board's meant a lot. So that would go in my collection. Shit, what else do I have? The 0siris. The 0siris is another board that means a lot to me, just because A, I was part of the proto run, and B, I think at the time it was really kind of pushing the boundaries of material, because we hadn't really seen palm used. So to have like this kind of full palm board with a palm plate was like a radical idea to me, and I just absolutely love the feel and sound of that board. So the 0siris definitely brings up my number 2 spot. The HB85. That board, I think, is so much better than it has any right to be, and I think it's one of the coolest pieces of the keyboard history. And I would definitely put that as my number 3 board. So I'm really struggling on the last 2. I gotta be kind of honest. Sheesh. The Iron 165, I'm gonna say that as well. I mean, I really like the Smith and Rune guys. I have like no like real connection with them, which is kind of unfortunate, I guess. But like I really like them as people, and when they sent me the Iron 165, I was just like, holy shit. And then like I built it and I tried it, and I was like, this is without a doubt one of the best boards I've ever used, like hands down. And I think just for the sheer construction and particularly the interesting plate design, I think I would definitely put that in my top 5, because the Iron 165 is just an absolute joy to type on. And I think the last board for me, I gotta go with Topra on this one. It's gonna be it's gonna be a board that I got rid of, and another board that I really regret. And the person I sold it to, I can't reach anymore. Like, they're not in the hobby. Like, they won't respond to me. And I was really hoping to buy that board back as well, which was a 2005 HHKB Pro 1. That board was immaculate, and it felt unlike any other Topper board ever. And it was so incredible, and I'm bummed I'll probably never get it back. So there you go. I had to put Topper on my list. Shout out to Lang. All right, Jay, what about you? What's your 5?
I've been trying to think about this while you guys have been going through.
It's tough. It's actually tough.
It is. It's really, really tough. I think if I was gonna like, I'd probably pick the boards that aren't necessarily the best boards that I've ever owned or typed on, but there are a lot of boards that have a lot of meaning to me. So my stupid Chrome Edition IDB60 means a lot to me, because when Pingu designed the board and ran the group by, I helped him out trying to ship it and everything else, and he gave me that board in lieu of payment, because both Upas and I lost a bit of money trying to rectify that, so he gave me that board in lieu of payment, and that means a lot to me. I mean, it's absolutely stupid, because it weighs like, I don't know, like 15 pounds, and it's 60%, and it's made of steel and chrome, and it sounds awful and it feels weird and bouncy, but you know what, I absolutely adore it. So that would probably be one of the boards I'd pick and put on there. The other board that I would probably pick and put on there is the Alison and Matilda prototype, which is just on my shelf back here. The reason I picked that is because Mr. Petrov challenged me in ways I didn't know that you could be challenged, to try and get those boards produced, and we're now just going through the revisions of the second one, and it was the first ever kind of commission that Prototypist did, so that means a lot to me as well. So I'd probably pick those as kind of like one collective. I have to put an Alps board in there as well, because Alps is kind of like one of my favorite things in the world. So I picked my Borsdorf, Darth WTF. He designed the Borsdorf, which is for ISO Alps old Apple keycaps. I absolutely love that thing. It's got brown Alps in, and it's probably the only tactile board that I could daily if it came to it. So I'd probably pick that and put that on there as well. And then I have to say the JO1 and the JO2, because they've been boards that have been shaped out of my preference for the hobby. So I'd probably pick those. Big shout out to James for his help with the design work on those.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like we get a lot of like similar questions, like what's your favorite this or that, but like that's like a really well structured question.
That's good.
Yeah. I mean, you can shove all the big names out there that you want, but you have to pick the boards that mean something to you. I think.
There's got to be.
We've all picked boards that have got meaning to us, rather than saying, "Oh, the JMV2CE or the Alice or whatever else board you want to pick and put in there," which we've all tried and had at some point. Yeah. The boards that mean something to you, are the ones that you have the emotional attachment to, and that's what's important there.
Yeah, totally agree. Wave Depth with our next question asking, what board started the gasket quote-unquote trend, and why was it so successful as making gaskets so desirable?
Oh man, that's a deep question.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it goes back to the OTD days, like 2009, 2010-ish era. And it kind of... And honestly, it was really successful. Like, the OTD boards that I felt that are gasket mounted are really, really nice.
They're amazing, and we're still learning stuff now that the OTD guys and other Korean group buys learn in the mid, 2008 to 2011 sort of range. We're still relearning some of that stuff now in the community, and we're still picking back up on that. So those were the original gasket boards of various types, depending on which model you want to pick. But it kind of went away for a long time. It
died out for a long time.
The next time that it came back was with the Type Machina #1, which today is more commonly known as the Key Cult #1. That board and Wheaston's GSKT, they were both in development, similar boards around the same sort of time. They both had very different implementations of gasket materials. One was an O-ring, and one was kind of like the standard tabs with gasket material above and below. Just above, I think it was on the original one actually. So gasket went away for a long time, and after the Koreans kind of like dwindled down in terms of the development of it, there wasn't really much in the space, and those were the first two boards in the Western Hemisphere to kind of pick up that mantle and start to come up with some new stuff. There was some other private runs that I'm aware of that ran around that sort of time that were very small numbers, very low numbered boards that did have gaskets in there. There was some other people and designers playing around with stuff at that point. So I know Noxry was playing around with stuff for his Sondat. I was kind of toying around with the original ideas for the JR1 at this point, and I'd looked at using different materials for gaskets, including some textile materials which no one's ever used, such as leather and denim and all sorts of other things we tried. None of that works, by the way, so don't try it.
He put in the work for us.
Those were the kind of boards that brought it back, and since then it's just been an explosion of this is what it means to be a gasket mount, and this is how you can do isolation mount, and this is how you can do tab mount, this is how you can do O-ring mount, and then we've got things like Noxry now doing the dual O-ring mount, where you've got an O-ring above and below the plate, and all sorts of stuff like that. So yeah, you can go right back to the early days of the hobby, and then it took a break for a bit, and then now it's everywhere.
Don't forget the meme. Don't forget the meme.
Yeah, the meme as well. Yeah, don't forget the meme. Yeah.
Do you mean like the gasket mount is being a meme or becoming a meme, or do you mean the meme is in like the actual gasket mount board?
The actual gasket mount board.
Okay.
Well, that was one of the boards I was referring to when I mentioned the small private runs, right?
Yeah. So I owned one of those. And it was amazing. That board was actually fantastic. It was way better than it had any right to be. Shout out to Heine, because I think he did like most of the design on that one.
Heine crelled it, right?
I had a hot pink meme. It had a top Clack badge. Man, that shit was legit.
There's a Louis Vuitton Supreme one floating out there.
I don't know why.
There is, there is a Louis Vuitton one. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, that board's really cool. It felt and sounded incredible. I forgot about that board. I honestly did. That's great. Sneaking Bison asking, what set would you put on an E Ultra Hot? Oof, it's a good question. When
laser.
Yeah. See, there's kind of like a couple like trains of thought, a couple theories on it. Like some people like to like match, right? Some people like to. It's like compare and contrast. Some people like to compare, some people like to contrast. I'm more of a contrast kind of person. If I'm getting like a really vividly bright board, like a really in-your-face color like that, I like the neutral sets, because I don't want to take away from the board. But I do appreciate a good match as well. I don't like to match because I'm colorblind.
Modern Dolch Light.
There you go. Another neutral.
I'm just going to go for laser, because why not?
Yeah, Jay likes blinding himself. I can't wait to see you put laser on one of those. It's gonna be great.
Hey man, I'll do it.
I know you will. I know you totally will. That's why I'm excited. I'm not a big fan of laser personally, but I think it could look very interesting on that. Center's asking, does fasting make switches smoother? Yes, absolutely.
100%.
Trying to scroll through some of the. There's been a lot of talk in chat today. There's a lot of people in chat talking, which is cool. But I have to scroll a lot more. 93 Horror Show is asking, should I hoard switches? I've recently fallen for the Boba U4 Silence. Not sure if I should buy more switches than I have boards for.
There's nothing wrong with having spares, but you don't need like thousands unless you're going to build a board every week.
Because what happens is you buy a crap load of them, and then you're like halfway through your stock, and then a new switch comes out, and you're like, well, damn, now I've got 500 of these just sitting here.
Yeah, I have
this
way
has happened
more
to you
switches.
as well, hasn't it?
Yeah,
I can tell this is a voice of reason.
Yeah, I agree. Once I have so many switches, and I'm probably never going to use all of them. Like that's just like the reality of it. So I don't know. I'm not. I guess I'm a switch hoarder, but not necessarily because I bought a lot of switches, but because I feel like when you're in a position like we are, and people are like, oh, check these switches out or review these or whatever, and they just like send you switches, and you're just like, okay. And so you wind up with all these switches, and you're trying to get through them all and test them out, and everyone's like, oh, how do you feel about this switch? And I'm like, oh, I still haven't built a board with that switch yet. Oh man, it's a scenario, that's for sure.
The worst right now is the JWK linears because they're all the same.
They're all
it's just different color.
More or less, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a switch hoarder. I'm also of the mind where I would never really build 2 boards with the same switch because I like to try to go for as different of an experience as I can, generally speaking. I don't want any of my boards to be too similar. I want a total shift when I swap boards. I want a completely new, totally different variety, you know? So I tend not to reuse. None of my boards have a duplicate switch. None of them. So they're all different.
What we're saying is there's no right or wrong answer to this. Just do what you feel is best. But bear in mind that if you buy a ton of switches, you probably find something else that you like further down the line. And they might go unused. Just bear that in mind.
Maybe a middle ground. Maybe buy enough for a few boards.
And what you should do is you buy enough for the boards that you need, and then give some to other people to try. If you can afford to buy switches, you can afford to give some away.
Fair point. All right. I don't make my bed is asking. I think there is a group of people that try to control what is cool and acceptable to buy for a keyboard, design and pricing in the hobby. I've seen these people unhappy that Glorious or other new people coming into the keyboard scene. I just don't think Glorious will need to play by old school keyboarders' rules. I mean, that's kind of the niche keyboard community, especially the custom world, is it's very tight knit, right? We like to keep everything kind of to ourselves, just because that's just what we're used to doing. I don't know. I don't know. What do you guys think? I feel like that's a touchy subject.
I think my view is that you don't have to let your personal views be influenced by other people. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion and their own thoughts and feelings on something. You don't have to let other people define what that is for you. Would be my answer to that. If other people have got these thoughts and feelings, or you feel like other people have this kind of take on the hobby, just don't let it influence you. Just ignore it and put it to one side and make your own opinion.
Yeah, that's definitely the easy solution.
I think there's also a lot of people who are in keyboards that have been into it for a while that are a little bit jaded as well in seeing these big companies saying they promise all this stuff and then it doesn't happen. There's also a lot of situations where things like this, they seem like people trying to gatekeep, but it's just them being hesitant or them being worried that maybe there's I think there's a lot of people that want other people to understand why things are the way that they are. Having the knowledge base of why we sought out gaskets, why we went to these different mounting styles, why did the rotary encoder become a thing, why is a 75% layout important. And I think that there's a lot of people who are passionate about that, and they want other people to be passionate about that. And sometimes that comes across as gatekeepy.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people try to pass it off as elitism sometimes, but like I totally agree. When you're at this level of the hobby, it's a very personal thing. You're dealing with a lot of highly passionate people that are putting their spare time into something like this. It's not like, it's not like a mass market cash grab or anything. It's people that actually give a damn about the product and the consumers. And so, like,
Sure.
we in the keyboard world, the enthusiast community, we start a lot of things. We start a lot of trends, and I think it's easy to be upset seeing those trends being taken hold of by other companies that aren't necessarily in the enthusiast market per se. So I could definitely see where people are coming from on that.
Yeah, you just don't have to let it influence you if you don't subscribe to that worldview. It's simple as that.
Yeah.
Salmon Heller says, what key set surprised you the most with its reception after its shift? For me, it was GMK DMG because the first round barely hit MOQ. I mean, Olivia. If we're talking about barely hitting MOQ, Olivia's got to be the success story there, right? Barely hit MOQ in round 1 and then sold 700,000 units in round 2.
It almost failed, and it became the most popular key set in the community.
Like,
that's what happened.
Yeah, I can remember the day I got my GMK Olivia set in. Like, no one else had it because Mekanisk got their shipment and they shipped it to me directly on the day they got it. And I remember unboxing it. This was just like after I joined Top Clack, but wasn't on the show. And I remember showing pictures of it in the chat and everything. And everyone was like, it's all right, I guess. It's fine. It looks like the renders did. It's fine. And I was like, no, guys, this is really, really good. Like, it's genuinely really nice. I'm really happy I've got it. And then 6 months later, the aftermarket price is sky high for it.
For me, I will say, man, this is a hard question. I think Vaporwave, honestly. I think because initially I feel like there was a mixed reception of that set. I think a lot of people were saying when it first came out, when it first started shipping to people, people were upset because it doesn't necessarily photograph very well. It's a lot like Bento, where when you look at pictures of Bento, you're like, well, I can't read those modifiers. But in person, you're like, oh my gosh, that looks so good. So I think Vaporwave's like that for me. I think that might be the set that has it got a lot of hate at first, and then it started to shift the narrative as more people got it.
I think you're right. I remember seeing a lot of product pictures before I got my set. I was like, I'm not sure this looks like it should do and doesn't look particularly great. And even on camera, like now when you stream and I do build with it, it doesn't look good. But you're absolutely right. In real life, in person, in good lighting, in bad lighting, doesn't matter. It looks fantastic. I've got it just back here. There. That's on a TKL of some sort. I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, for me, it's got to be Olivia, like I mentioned. I know that's kind of the cop-out answer, but you literally go from an almost failing group buy to being the most popular set in the community. It doesn't get more surprising than that to me. 2B Pencil follows up with any near misses, boards you wish were made but never were.
Lumina.
Oh. He went there.
Wow. Yeah. It's a fair option.
Honestly, not even joking. I mean, it would have been a crazy board.
It would have been a cool board, most likely. It would have been a pretty cool board.
Yeah, I mean, everything makes a group buy these days and tends to get made into production. Lumina's probably the last big board I remember that ran a group buy that didn't make it through production because of all of the issues it had there. But there must have been boards back in the day that we saw interest checks for that just never got made.
I'm sure there were quite a few. I honestly cannot think of any off the top of my head that flopped.
I'm struggling as well, but there must be. I mean, there's a load of boards that exist that are out there that I wish I'd been able to get in on and I didn't. HB85 is absolutely one of them. Every time you mention that you have one, Brian, I feel a little bit sick and a little bit nauseous because I'm so jealous of it. But yeah, that's a difficult one.
I'm trying to even think of keyboards that were interest checked in one form and then changed that made it to where I wasn't into it anymore. But I can't even think of.
There must have been a ton of ton of them. I just can't think of them. There's so many these days, though, that it's hard to remember back.
It's hard. It's yeah, right. It's hard to think about it because these days, like you mentioned, like everything gets made. Like even if it's only like 10 units or 20 unit run or 30 unit run or whatever, like pretty much anything that's proposed gets made. I feel like.
Yeah,
I can tell you one that it's not exactly an answer to the question, but in a sense it is the COD 67. It was made only in like the weird arrow key layout.
The staggered shift row, yeah.
Yeah, if they made that in a standard 60%, that would have been a board that I was really excited about.
Yeah. Trolling Cody is asking, Alex 40, what's happening with that? So that's Tokyo Coffee Nerd's newest project with all the kind of artisanal, hand-done everything in Japan kind of concept.
It's in manufacturing right now. They're making them. That's what's happening.
Awesome.
Yeah. Did either of you guys buy one?
I did not, sadly. I think it's really cool, but I couldn't justify that price on it, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately not.
I bought the orange one, and I remember saying to myself, if the dark grey and black one is still in stock when I wake up, or still available when I wake up, I'll buy that as well. And it was, and I added it to the basket, and I never clicked buy, and now I really wish I'd bought both. But yeah,
oh no. Getting both that's a Chad play. That is the alpha move.
Yeah, well, I said I want other people to have a chance first, and I thought because this was like 11 o'clock at night, and it was a Saturday morning, so I thought I'm going to be in bed for like a good 10 hours here. Like, if in 10 hours it still hasn't sold out, I think it's fair for me to buy a second one. And it was still there when I woke up, and I thought about it, and I didn't do it, and I kind of toyed around for the half the day, and then I went back and looked, and then it had sold out. So yeah.
Wave Depth is asking, are Zycos worth it?
No.
Yeah.
They're amazing, but the like the one build I've done with them, my thumbs felt like I needed to not touch anything for a week.
It's one of those things, if you are willing to put in the time, the effort, the pain and suffering of the Switch, it is worth it. It is
the failure rate, right? Don't parts break sometimes when you make them?
Yes.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
they fundamentally should not work.
Yes, yeah, you're forcing parts together that aren't designed to go together.
I'm gonna revise my answer here. The Zycos are worth it if someone else builds the switches for you.
All right, Chewy, where are you at, my dude?
But no, they are a Switch that is above any, in my opinion, above any available tactile Switch in terms of tactility. They have a feel that's kind of unmatched. So if you're willing and you have those Switches laying around, I had a whole bunch of 78-gram Zeal Switches just laying around, and I bought like 350 350 drop Holy Pandas on the first run because I thought that they were going to only do them once, going back to Switch hoarding. And so I had a whole bunch of the Switches, so I just made them. I put them in my iron, and I love them. Are they finicky? Yes. Do they break? Yeah. Do they explode? Sometime. But they are great, and they are an absolute gem and a pleasure to use.
As long as they only explode sometimes, I think I'm on board.
It's also the pain of using them, though, because like we've all experienced that whole Holy Panda Singer difficulty of getting them into a play.
Yeah.
But Zycos are on another level entirely. Like some of those, you feel like you need to take a hammer to them to get them in. Like my thumbs never forgave me after the one build I did with Zycos, and as much as my fingers enjoyed the typing, my thumbs could never forget it. Like, yeah. I think next time I'm just going to farm it out to Chewy and say, Chewy, here's the board, here's all the parts, put it together.
It's a badge of honor.
Thanks, Chewy.
Yeah.
I Don't Make My Bed is asking, do you guys always recommend breaking in switches? I feel like it'll really depend on the Switch. I feel like some Switches really don't need breaking in, and I feel like some really do. And I feel like as time goes on, we tend to produce smoother and smoother Switches. Check out the JWK stuff, a lot of Gateron's most recent stuff, Telios, Inks. Like they're very, very smooth. And I feel like while breaking in might help a little bit, it's definitely not at the same level as something like a Cherry MX Switch, which hugely benefits from breaking in. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it vastly depends on the Switch. Like some Switches definitely need breaking in, others it's fine. I really like to break in creams, but I probably don't break in inks. You know, it all depends on what you're using and what you expect from them. In fact, the only time I've ever broken in inks is in the thermal, which I'm doing right now. I'm breaking them in, and then I'm going to relube them and rebuild it. But yeah, it really depends on the Switch.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I think the only Switch that I would be a strong advocate for breaking in right now is like the blueberries and the creams. Like, and even then, honestly, if you lube them, it'll eventually happen over time. It's just they're gonna kind of suck for a little bit. Like,
yeah. All right. I'm scrolling, guys. I'm scrolling.
Scrolling.
All right, here's some more questions. Striking Bison, asking, when are we going to see the Geist board in group buy? Love the renders. Oh, the Geist.
It's coming. Yeah, it's coming. It's happening. I don't know dates and stuff or anything, and I'm not involved in the project, but yeah, it's happening. It looks amazing. Whether it will feel and sound amazing, I've seen some of the typing tests as well of the prototype. It sounds okay, but yeah, like it's certainly an interesting Art Deco looking board.
It's crazy. I'm stoked. It looks amazing.
It looks pretty interesting. Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. You Like It is asking, probably not an important question. Do you think some raffles are slightly rigged, meaning a certain small amount goes to certain people determined by the raffle owner?
Depends. And honestly, it's the seller selling it. They can choose who they want to sell to or not. So, you know, if they want to, I think there's a difference here between whether they share, whether they've handpicked some people, or whether it was true RNG, or whether they haven't, and they don't have to share that information. But you know, there's always going to be people that have helped out in group buys or helped out as a mod on a Discord server or anything else. You know, you can pick 1,001 reasons why someone might get picked out over other people. I suspect it happens sometimes. But yeah, I don't think it really matters at the end of the day. You know, there's still boards there that are RNG'd, and some vendors, you know, make it really clear. Like when I did the JR one, I was really clear that there was some friends and family boards, and then there was limited edition boards. And those, whilst they're the same board, there were two separate pots entirely. But not everyone wants to make that public or share how they're doing it, so I think it's fine.
Yeah, I think for the most part it is fine. I think when you run into issues is when it's like, let's say a 25-person raffle and like 20 of them go to like hand-selected people and like they don't say anything about that. I think that's a little bit more of an issue, because if you think it's like a 25-spot public raffle, but really it's only like a 5-spot public raffle, that feels a little cheated. But again, sure, at the end of the day, like, it's really going to depend on the seller.
I think the other side of this as well is people have said, "Oh, I've had this complaint made at me. It's like, oh, I see that you've got X board in the raffle," and it's like, yeah, and they're like, "Oh, that's just because you're on Top Clack or whatever," and it's like, it's probably not. Like, I fail in raffles all the time. Like, I can't remember the last time I won a Kipura or anything like that. You know, or certain keyboards. It's just the fact that the people who are well known in the hobby tend to join pretty much. Well, maybe not everything, but they tend to join a lot more group buys, or try to join a lot more group buys, and a lot of people will do. So you will naturally see their names occurring more in raffle lists because they've entered into more stuff. That doesn't mean to say that they've been necessarily picked, you know, or hand-picked or hand-chosen, or given any kind of preference. It can just be the fact that they've entered far more than other people have. So, you know, I still take my fair share of L's.
It's a good question.
Yeah. It's a lot of friends and family slots that occur outside that don't actually factor into those numbers. So yeah, that's what happens more often than not now.
That's how I like seeing it done, because then it doesn't, like, nobody has anything to complain about, because like the actual raffle isn't actually affected. Geo says Jay's still salty about the loss on the moon.
No, I got a moon. I got a moon.
Oh, did you get a moon?
Like I was in the final batch of invoices. Yeah, I was like, I don't know, 189 or something. But yeah, I got one.
Nice. I know quite a few people that got the moon, which is awesome. I'm glad that reran. That's one of the cooler TKLs in the community, in my opinion.
I've wanted one for so long. They didn't do the colorway that I wanted this round, but like I'm happy with the colorways they did do. But there's I've got a friend Dan in the UK, and he has one in the colorway that I did really, really want, and it's like. And he teases me because he sends it to me every time he wants it fixing or rebuilding rather than do it himself. And it's like, I know why you sent this to me. You're just rubbing it in now. But yeah, I did get one in the end. Yeah, when I woke up the next morning, I had an invoice from the last one. But yeah,
nice. 2B Pencil says appreciate the ponderings and memories. We do too, man. Oh. It's always cool to look back and I don't know, get nostalgic, reminisce a little about the community beginnings, or at least as it were when we entered. Fooburger asks, how many keyboards is too many keyboards? However many keyboards Jay has in his collection.
No, that's not true. N+1 is the right
N
number
plus
to
one,
have.
that's right.
Where N is the number you have right now. N+1 is the right number to have, where N is defined as the number of boards you have right now.
Yes. What about you, Osiris? How many keyboards? Too many keyboards. Is there a number?
So Chewy and I have this conversation a lot, and
really?
we go back and forth on how many should you have, and how I don't know. It's a luxury
hobby.
How many how many is too many? When you get to the point where you can't justify spending more money, right? And then maybe you decide whenever you want to buy a new one, you look at your collection and you say, well, I can part with that one, and you sell one to buy another. Like when you're at that point, that's when you're at a comfortable point.
Yeah.
Don't go too high after that, right? But if you're someone who can you love it to that point where you just want to keep getting them more and more and more, you don't want to part, then cool, that's for you. It's different per person. I don't like to sell things. I don't think Jay likes to sell things either.
I think
I just told.
No, exactly. Right. Like ideally, we're all kind of collectors at heart in this hobby. Like I feel like very few of us actually want to give up keyboards to buy new ones, or just give them up in general.
Do you guys know how many you have? Do you have an accurate running count?
I have yes, because I don't have nearly as many as you do, so mine isn't too bad. I don't know exactly, but I'm around 25. Give or take 1 or 2, probably.
See, I'm way less. I have 6 that I would consider in the current rotation, and then I have probably 4 or 5. About 5 or 6 that are not, that are just I just
in
have
the collection. Sure.
Yeah. They just exist.
Do you have a number, Jay? Do you have a number off the top of your head?
I don't know. It's in the triple digits. I don't have an accurate number. I think it's somewhere edging close to 200, but I don't know.
I can't imagine being I can't find my insert high-end keyboard here. Because it's just lost among I can't.
Do you know what the best part?
I can't imagine that scenario.
I'm searching through stuff, and I thought I'd sold all of my Duck keyboards ages ago, and then I was moving stuff from the house into the warehouse, and I just randomly found the Duck Viper V2, and I didn't even know I had it. I genuinely didn't even know it was existing in my collection anymore. So that was a nice surprise. Jokes aside, I genuinely don't know. I did start to make a bit of a tracker, and it was just too big, and I think I stopped at 135 boards or something, and that didn't include stuff that's coming in group buys or stuff that's arrived since then, and it wasn't a full list, so I genuinely don't know.
Jay's just he's trying to swim through his key cults, and he's like, oh shit,
I don't know. I've only got one key cult, I think. No, I've got 2. I've got a 60 and I've got a TKL. I've got 2 key cults. Yeah, 60 and a TKL.
Oh man, that's good stuff. IP9932CD, thank you very much for the sub, man.
Such a great name.
Yeah, you gotta change your name, man. Why?
Golly.
Hooey. All right, I think we're mostly caught up. Okay. Another shout out to Yakbats, who subbed at Twitch Prime, says, "Love you guys. I can't always catch a stream, but when I can, I love the content." Oh, thanks, man. That is a wholesome ass comment. I appreciate that. All right. I think
when I was asking which color moon did I get, I went for the silver and cyan one. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Andy G. Kim is asking, do you guys still own your first ever custom? I do not. Sadly, I don't.
If you count it as the poker that I customized myself, yes, I still own that. It still looks horrible, and I've not used it in God knows how long. I don't even know if it still works. If you mean the first board I bought that would be classed as a real custom, no. It was a KBD 75, and I don't know if people class that as a custom. It was a KBD 75, and I don't own that anymore. I actually had it powder coated bright orange, and I sold that to someone in Sweden, I think. So yeah, I don't know that anymore.
I do still own. Well, if we're saying like the first board that you built, which I would say is probably what he means by this. Yeah, I do own my initial Tada 68 that I bought the kit off of KBDfans and built. It is not even close to the same as it was when I first built it. It has different switches. It's in a different case, but it's still the same PCB and the same plate. But yeah.
Yeah, I definitely do not. Mine was also kind of it was in a poker case, so it was kind of like a poker, but the GH60 Satan PCB, remember that PCB?
Yeah, dude.
That had like
that
just come out.
Seller.
Yeah, that just came out, and I was in the very first. It was actually after the fact, but I was basically in the very first group buy that Leandrin of Mekanisk did before Mekanisk existed, and back when he just did plate group buys. I got one of his round 1 aluminum universal 60% plates. And
yeah, I remember those group buys.
Yep, and Zelios had just came out, so I had the round 1 Zelios V1, and nice. Oh boy, did that build have issues. Oh boy.
I thought you were going to say, oh boy, was that build good for the time, but no, it had issues.
It was. Nice. Once I fixed all the issues. I mean, round 1 Zelios V1 were a nightmare. Like, a third of them would chatter. Like, you would have to physically... I went in, I physically bent the leaf on, like, a lot of my V1 round 1 Zelios, because if you didn't, it just wouldn't work. It would just chatter. You'd get multiple inputs for like, a lot of your board. But yeah, it took me like 3 hours to solder, because, like, I was so scared. I had no idea what I was doing. And then I realized soldering is super duper easy, and I should never have been afraid.
Nice.
I mean, those switches came out, like, not that long after the patent had expired. Like, it wasn't
2015, I think. Yeah, it was pretty soon. It was through Gateron, obviously, so it was like right after Gateron had kind of hit the scene and was sort of taking over, because Gateron was just, even at that time, just way better than Cherry.
It's crazy to think that that's only like 5 or 6 years ago, though, right?
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago.
We've only had Gateron switches for 5 or 6 years in the community, and now look at where we are.
Lucky Star is asking, are any of you going for the Vega? You boys buying the Vega?
Probably not. Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, the Vega is effectively like the 65% Polaris, right?
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Okay. So I will probably not, just because I have a Polaris, which I'm using right now, actually, and I've been thoroughly enjoying it. But I definitely won't need a Vega then, if it's similar.
Yeah, I'm happy on my 65% right now. I've got Bauer and Iron. I'm kind of at the point where I want something that's gonna kind of wow me, for me to go further into it, and I don't think that I'm gonna get anything additional out of the Vega that I can't get from my Iron or Bauer.
That's fine.
All right. Point says Polaris punches so far above its weight, it's stupid. I agree. I think the Polaris is just an absolutely lovely board for the price. I don't think it's very good at like $800, but I think it's really good at like $250. Thankfully, I got mine for
it was great at group buy price,
cause...
but not so much the aftermarket option.
Yeah, man, that still blows my mind. Ugh. I don't know. I could go on forever about that. Anyways, we were caught up on questions. I think now's probably as good a time as any to head off for the night. We gotta pick someone to raid though. Who should we raid?
Oh, should we see who's available? Who is?
Looks like Tiny, McMerlin,
DD's there.
I think we rated him last show, so we should probably do someone else.
Should we do Merlin?
Should we do Merlin? We can do Merlin. What is he doing right now? He's doing a build stream.
KBD 75v2 with Gatron Black Inks.
Nice. If we raid Tiny though, we get a wrap, I think.
Oh really?
Which is a pretty good reason to raid someone, if I'm being honest.
That's cool.
Because yeah, sorry, Osiris, what were you saying?
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, I really like when Tiny raps because it's like super duper adorable and she's like so goofy. So I don't know. And I think we rated Merlin more recently than Tiny, so maybe we should try to keep a rotation going.
Yeah, let's go for Tiny then. Let's go for Tiny, and let's see if we can hear a rap.
Yeah, that'll be worth it. All right, guys, I'm gonna cue that up in a second. But yeah, so that's gonna be it for the show, everyone. Check below the stream. You can find links to pretty much all of our outlets. You can come into our Discord and talk about your favorite tacos or your favorite video game, or even keyboards, believe it or not. So come hang out with us and hopefully have a really good time. And there's some other things down there as well. You can check out our YouTube, subscribe there. All of our VODs get posted there and whatnot. So yeah, any closing thoughts, gentlemen?
I have so if you're not familiar with Mechs on Deck, twitch.tv/Mechs on Deck, Chewy and I, we stream every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are at 8 p.m. Central, and then Saturdays are at 2 p.m. Central. And this upcoming Saturday, a pretty special stream. Chewy will be building a Iron 180 prototype. It's going to be a special edition version of the board, and also he will be giving away a guaranteed group by slot. So you still have to pay for the board, but you get an automatic slot. So check that out. That'll be happening Saturday at 2 p.m. Central Time.
Nice. That sounds awesome. I'll be there for that.
Yeah.
Watching. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice. I'm excited to see that. I just got my plate in for my Iron 180 because that ships to me this week, I think. Vox and Baron said they were shipping my Iron 180 to me some point this week. I don't know. I haven't had the shipping notification yet, but it's on its way. It should be here soon, which is really exciting.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Looking forward to that. In terms of upcoming stuff for me, there will be a couple more build streams this week. I've tried to do quite a few, so I've done 2 build streams already this week. I'm going to try and do at least 2 more before the end of the week. So there's probably going to be one on late Saturday night, much later than my normal time, and then the Sunday slot will stay the same. It's going to be 2 JO2s. I have a customer's JO2 to build, and then I have a personal one to build, and then I'll be sending my second personal one over to Stash because he's going to build it, and my third one is going to you guys. I promised you guys Mechs on Deck that you guys could build my third personal one ages ago, so I have kind of like one of the limited edition LEs I'm going to send to you guys. To build, and you can fight out between you who builds it, I guess.
All right, but you have to actually fight.
Yeah, I want to see like a whole ring. I want to see you guys in the ring with gloves, and go for it.
Nice.
I will definitely lose that because I can't use like the speed aspect because Chewy is like deceptively fast, and he has to run at children all day because he works in elementary education. So, yeah. I will lose. So, but he got to build a JO1 already. So
maybe it's time for your boy Osiris to step up to the J series plate, as it were.
Should we do Zycos, guys?
Oh my god! You should make him make Zycos.
If it's Zycos, I'll make Chewy do it.
Right. Okay. Maybe we'll see. I don't know, but I'll sort that out and send it over in the next week or 2.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to be it. Once again, Osiris, thank you so much for joining us. We definitely very much appreciate it. It's been a great time, as usual. Guys, make sure to check out Osiris over at Mechs on Deck. I posted the link in Twitch chat already, but I'm going to spam it a couple more times. Make sure you guys go follow there, check out their streams. Great content. And yeah, let's get set up for a raid on Tiny. I'm gonna go ahead and start this, and we're just gonna kind of casually stretch as well. All right, guys, get ready for this. Make sure when we get in there, say something wholesome. You know, that's just what we do. Say something nice. She's building. I think it looks like she's building an Equinox, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
That's
she's going split space as well. So
split space. All right, we might have to give her shit for that. No, I'm kidding. kidding. I'm like a full space bar on a 40s kind of guy. Like, I know which is like ridiculous for a lot of people, but man, do I like it. All right, guys. Well, hopefully you have a good rest of your day or night, regardless of where you are. And let's go head over to Tiny Stream.